Welcome to Self Perfected.
And it was.
Well, I think we're already.
Oh shit.
Oh man.
Christine's
Is it
just like, let's
Hey,
go.
let's
Hey,
just go.
Are they both on?
Yeah. Yes.
Let's go, you guys. We finally figured it out. It only took us 200 episodes to do this. Sorry, 199. This is 200.
This is our second hundo that we're breaking off, and
Guys,
it's like a
come a
Kit
long
Kat.
way.
We want to share with everyone,
Yeah.
but that's
Break
too
Come a
X.
long way.
whatever. Let's do
Imagine
those
when
two.
we started, I was still living in some fucking apartment. Drake was living in his own apartment.
Yeah.
Apparently was I don't know, Christine didn't like it, if I remember correctly.
My apartment could fit in your apartment.
Cameron had a giant ass beard with that giant ass bookshelf behind him.
And
Now he's
I was
just got a
fat as
different
hell.
one. Yeah. Look at us. Look at us.
PHAT.
Now I got a kid. Another one on the way.
Another one on the way. I got 3. Drake's got 1.
Let's go. That's an army right there. Well,
Yeah.
I think
We got
I think
family.
that'll
We
conclude
got
the
purpose.
podcast, guys. What else can we fucking talk? I think we've talked about everything in 200 episodes. What else is there to talk about? Drake, what are you drinking?
Smoothie. Not like your smoothies. Just like
Isn't
throw that out
actually
right
tasty?
away.
What is yours? Fucking
Mine actually.
blackberries? I bet you
uh,
drink fucking
there are
$12
blackberries in
blackberry
it.
smoothies.
There
You know
are
that
With
blackberries.
Kanye line?
avocado with an avocado in it.
Isn't there a Kanye line where he like rhymes movie and smoothie?
I'm sure there is. Yeah.
I think so.
Oh, and then my wife makes a smoothie. Yeah. And then we make a movie. Yeah.
Oh.
Something like that. Yeah.
I
Because you're
don't
talking
know, but
about
he
they
keeps
make a
coming
home
out with that
movie
music.
and then she makes him a smoothie. And I'm sure he's talking about Kim Kardashian. I'm also pretty sure that Cam is frozen now. He's just I
Frozen?
thought he was thinking for the longest
Oh, Cam
time.
is frozen. I thought you said Kim is like Kim Kardashian is frozen. I was
You
like,
think
what is
you think that I think about what I say?
I thought you were thinking like, wow, he really did make a song about smoothies and movies.
Well, no, like Caius, like he's learning to pronounce his S's and so forth still, right? And so, like when Katie asked me if she wants me to make me a smoothie today, Caius heard that and he was like, "Smoothie, smoothie." He's like, "Daddy, smoothie." And like he says snake, he'll be like snake. So it's like a snake.
Snake.
And so I'm always joking, like when he asks for a snack, sometimes I'll joke like, you want a snake snack? You know, like I don't say it like that, but I saw you want a snake snack, like just like joke, making the words right. And then we actually caught a snake, killed it, I skinned it. You know, the meat's in the freezer, and he'll want to look at it, and he'll be like, snake snack.
That's funny.
It's funny because like he'll point at bugs, and he'll look at me, and he'll be like, "Daddy, kill." Like, do we need to kill that one? And one time I shot a squirrel, so anytime we talk about squirrels or see a squirrel, he'll be like, "Daddy, kill."
That's hilarious.
But it's cool because it's like he's trying to understand, like, you know,
Do we
it's
kill
so
this
cool.
one or no? No.
Yeah, exactly. Like he's always like wondering, you know, trying to understand things. So cool.
I saw this video that Katie had posted or put on her story, and she said, you know, they were out by the electric fence, and she was like, "Hey, Kais, don't touch the fence because you could get shocked." And she said he went over to the little box that, you know, shows that the indicator light for the fence being on, and he stared at it for a while, and then he turned to her and was like, "Katie, off." And then he goes back to the fence and like, touch. Which is so cool, you know, like he's 2 years
that's
old.
great.
He's like, I can tell when the fence is on or not. Yeah, I'll make the decisions here. Okay.
Okay, so this segues really nicely into what we need to discuss here, right? I was looking at this morning, and I was looking at how as a kid you're not explained reality, like you're not explained how the world works properly, and how at such a deep level that creates like a rift in how you see yourself and how you see the world, and it's like doubt, literally just doubt just breeds from that, and it was really cool because I was able to. It's like when you have a kid, you can then change that. And it's like the most awesome, one of the most awesome things. But yeah, at what point in your guys' process did you realize that? Where you're like, oh shit, I was not programmed effectively, and like I can actually change that. Was it like right away, or did that take you a minute to actually really see that?
I mean, I mean, I realized I was not programmed properly for like a millennia before process before I was,
Yeah. Well, okay.
I was,
Obviously,
I
I know
didn't
you
I didn't
like.
realize I could change it though
Drake
until
realized it like
Yeah.
2,000 years ago when he was first came here and died and was resurrected.
in my first
In his
incarnation.
previous incarnation, yeah.
Yeah. Not my first, but my previous incarnation. You guys remember that one, right? It's like,
How come like it's okay if Jesus says I am God, but not okay if I say that?
excuse me, are you Jesus? All right, is that your
I mean, he said we were equal.
uh? First of all, how do you know he said that? How do you know that
I
was?
mean, it says it in the Bible.
Oh, right. I forgot that everything in there is divinely ordained. Even the known forgeries. That was just it's meant to be
Even
there.
if you can straight up prove someone like literally forged something and like added it in and edit, like it's still divinely inspired. Like that's
Well,
some fucking next
clearly
level mental
God
gymnastics.
wanted it to be there. I mean, he wouldn't put it in there if it wasn't, or get that other guy to like forge it and put it in there if he didn't want it in there. He would just take it out.
Yeah. Just a quick reminder for everybody: we have the self-perfected uh episode. What is the word? What's the call? I have it pulled up actually, or do I? No, I don't. Well, that's great. Good job.
I have no idea what
Let's see
you're
here.
talking
Self-perfected podcast video references playlist.
about.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Can whoever's doing the YouTube, can you make that a playlist on the channel?
I
That would be
oh,
cool.
I could try that. I could try that. Yeah.
It
Yeah,
would have to
anyway,
be a
so that'd
shared
be good to
playlist.
have out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's public.
Yeah. So Cameron,
Um,
when did you realize that though? In the like obviously when you're young, you're like searching, right? You're like, okay, something's fucking wrong with my life. But then when you're in the process and then you realize like, holy fuck, like how deep that goes. Of like from the moment the first words were spoken from your mom to you, it was like deception was planted in it. And like this is not how reality works. Right. And then to like have that moment of reckoning and then start changing it. Like what was
like
that
when did I
in
really
your process?
when did that click?
Yeah, when did that click?
Um uh sometime after going to the farm to like actually meet Bernard in person. Because like I knew all that stuff from studying Destiny and so forth, but it was more like still like more like a projection of onto the system itself, you know, and then having to realize like by especially building a business, realizing like, oh, I'm not understanding things or I'm not adequate or things are not just coming easily and like and then especially the points around like wanting to give up when challenges would come like pressure, those kind of things. It's not that I ever wanted to give up, but just those pressures come and then you have to make those decisions and then seeing like, okay, this is why I have the forgiveness, this is why I have to do all this process because and then also using TechnoTutor, like be able to, I mean, I could see a major difference in terms of how I can process things, but also just willingness. Because like I know people who know me from like a long time ago, they might be like, "Oh, well, you were smart. Like I knew you understood some things, and you could speak about certain things before." And that may be true to a certain extent, but it's like you can sound smart, but you're not really like, okay, maybe I can sound smart because I read a book and then I can talk about it. But now the amount of books I read then versus what I read now or what I process now or what I think about now is like, it's like orders of magnitude difference. So being able to process a lot more and then understanding the context of how it all comes together. And one of the big things I've been looking at lately, and this kind of also ties into your question. A lot of the stuff I've been sharing onto that playlist, which is now it's just the same stuff I'm sending to you guys. I'm putting on the playlist for everybody as well. So when I talk about, if for anybody listening, when I talk about, hey, when I sent you guys, when I'm talking to them, I put it on the playlist now too. So I'm sending it to everybody. So anyways, a lot of the stuff I've been sending over the past 2 to 4 weeks, let's say, is all around, not all of it, but like a lot of it is around the point of people questioning things in the system, whether it's religion, science, spirituality, whatever. It could be whatever the point is they're challenging, and then kind of expanding beyond it, but then still like not being able to go far enough, you know? So like, for example, we've been talking a lot about Stephen Meyer and intelligent design. Like Drake and I were talking for like 2 hours the other night, just on the phone, like at like fucking, I don't know, it was midnight or something, right? It's like
I was
probably
like,
1 o'clock his time. I'm like extracting honey in like this fucking thing, and like,
yeah.
yeah. Anyways,
I was like, dude,
so
just actually, we kept talking so much, the phone started breaking up every time we tried to talk, and it's just like, we should probably go to sleep. Yeah.
so, but what was the point? Anyways, we were talking a lot about intelligent design and evolution, all this kind of stuff, right? And so it's interesting because like I can share with somebody an intelligent design video from Stephen Meyer, and he's breaking down like all the points about science, evolution, how they don't, like, there's holes that have not been explained. And he's really smart, and he understands science. Like he's not just some idiot. Like he actually, I mean, it's like he went to Cambridge, right? Um, but then you listen to him talk about God, and you're like, dude, like this guy's an idiot. You know what I mean? And that doesn't discount his ability to understand science. Like, oh, just because he's a religious idiot doesn't mean he's like an idiot in science too. Because even when you listen to the scientists, they can be really smart, but then it's like they do the same thing that Stephen Meyer's doing about God. They just do it about science. Right. So it's like that video I shared, Drake, the one with Stephen Meyer talking about God. Can you break that down? Because I want to discuss that, and this will tie into your question, Mitch.
Oh yeah. So I'll just kind of, so the one that's on the plate. So I just saved it to the playlist, by the way. If you go to the Self-Perfected YouTube channel, you'll
We could
also
also
find,
pin it in the Facebook group too.
I mean, we could,
Yeah,
all you
but
have
it's
to do
also
is,
public for everybody, though.
yeah, you just go on the YouTube anyway. But the playlist is there, and it says it's the one on the playlist that says Stephen Meyer response to Stephen Fry's "God is evil," right? And it's basically some guys interviewing Stephen Meyer and just asking like, hey, about Stephen Fry. He said something about, when explain God, or can God explain why, if he creates everything, why did he create these freaking insects whose sole purpose is to burrow in the eyes of little children and make them go blind? Like, how are you going to tell me this is a benevolent God? I think what they asked him was, if you died and saw God, what would you say to him or something like that? And he was like, why are you so evil? Pretty much. And Stephen Meyer's response is basically like, well, there's just this thing. It's a natural evil because we turned away from God. Then that had a consequence on the rest of nature, and so the rest of nature just basically shows that we have turned away from God. It's just really, a consequence of, us, you know, saying no to God in the garden or something like that. And basically, he's trying to make the point that like, it's not God being evil. It's we have free will. We decided to use that to turn away from God. And because of that, now we're seeing a consequence throughout nature of us turning away from God. And basically what he said even was like, I forgot the point that he made specifically, but he was like, yeah, I'm satisfied with that answer. And it was like, it didn't really
Well, he was like,
explain.
there's enough. The Bible doesn't give the mechanics of how that worked. Like, how did we actually fall in such a way that it affected nature as well? But there's enough in the Bible that I know is real, that I'm willing to
Right.
not need that explanation. Also, I'm willing to just accept that we don't have the explanation, but it's valid.
Which is a
And he said, I'm
really,
satisfied with that.
it's a really interesting thing because he made the point that like the Bible does not explain everything. But he also was saying that like, but the reason why I find it so interesting is because what you're indoctrinated with in religion is you have to accept things on faith. And if you don't accept them on faith, then you're a bad person because you're doubting God. And so like that in itself is just prima facie evil, right? Like you can't doubt God. You can doubt yourself, you can doubt other people, but you cannot doubt God, right? And it begs the question, but why? Why not? Because then that makes you evil. But I don't understand how that works. And if we know if you don't understand something, you're going to have doubt. It's just that's a natural consequence. That's like what transpires. The phenomenon of not having enough information is doubt. And to just have blind faith is actually like, it's really dangerous. It's really dangerous to just have blind faith without having all the information. That would be like, you drink a vial of poison because you don't have all the information that, you drink this poison, it's going to kill you. You're like, I just have faith that my constitution is just good enough that my stomach can handle it. And you're like, you drink, and like, what's going to happen? You're going to die. Like, that's reckless. It's really reckless. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Yeah, and I mean, I think some would argue that they don't have blind faith, right? That it's based on certain things. But in the example we were talking about, you do have a blind faith in that. Like your faith, I think you can have a reasonable sense of faith. For example, that what I'm seeing is actually there. You have faith in that implicitly, automatically. You see what I'm saying? So
I guess the main point of this though wasn't to hit the point of blind faith. It was more so like, it doesn't really, like, you can see the breakdown of when he approaches the science of evolution. He's very scientific. He's very much like, well, okay, well, this doesn't make sense, and I want to investigate that. Like, we can't just leave that up because that has a lot of unanswered questions. But when it comes to looking at, in this instance, his religion, he just was like, no, there's a lot of holes here, and I'm okay with that. I'm not going to investigate further. And part of that is like, how much more investigation can you do if this is your only single text? But the other part of that is, we see that within so many different instances, regardless of faith or religion or whatever. People will get to a certain point where they're like I was telling you about this Joel Salatin thing, where he's talking about how they raise animals. And, he was just talking about like, man, we do the best that we can to raise animals in an environment that they would actually want to be in. And
like
he's
if I was them.
yeah, and he was given this example of how he had this guy who makes a lot of pork recipes or whatever, and he breaks down pigs and things like that. And the guy came and visited his farm, and he's like, man, I've never actually seen a live pig before, which is wild, right? But
that'd be like being a chef and you've never seen a plant growing. That's possible.
it's possible, but it's wild. It's so
weird.
fucking wild. Like, if you're an actual good chef, like, why wouldn't you want to know where is this food coming from? Like, what?
Well,
Like,
what does a good chef mean to them? Does it just mean you get the fame and notoriety because you get the restaurant in fucking Las Vegas, or is it like you actually appreciate?
Like if you were just trying to be famous or famous, like not necessarily on TV per se, but like you were trying to be really recognized in your field.
Yeah.
Right. And you were doing it for money and for that, and you liked cooking. Yes, I can see it would make sense why somebody would be like, well, I want to know where these things come from and so forth. But where do you draw the line? Because, okay, so should they also be like an expert in the microbiology of soil?
yeah,
Like, should they be like also going and looking into beehives to see how the bees live that pollinate the flowers that are growing the plants? Like, where would you, I see your point, but also
ideally,
you can see why, if you just kind of back that up a little bit, like they just live in a kitchen and they went to culinary school and they never went and investigated.
Yeah.
So you can see how that would happen, right?
Definitely. But like, and there's a very practical point of like, hey, I work in this kitchen. This is what I get paid to do. I don't have time.
Like the pigs come to me butchered and I'm cooking them.
Exactly. Yeah. But also, I mean, ideally we could have a world where like, because there's a point within this of like, I don't have time to do all that. And who's going to learn all that? Like what? Like what? I didn't learn
This
biology.
goes back to our original point of
Exactly.
like not being able to just take in a lot of information.
Exactly. And so there should be like at some point, you know, why is that not just the basis of your understanding? Like your kids right now, like, okay, when we were talking on the phone for those 2 hours, like you started breaking down, how you can cross-pollinate the different peppers and things like that. And you were getting so into it was so interesting and fun actually because you're telling me about how to cross-pollinate these peppers, and I'm thinking like as soon as you're saying this, I'm thinking of Mendel, like how he learned this in biology of like he would take the pea plants. It was literally he was doing this with plants and he was like, oh, and then you get these new strand or this new expression of these plants, and then if you take the offspring of those and you keep cross-pollinating them, here's what you're gonna get. And so it's cool because what are your kids learning right now? They're seeing you do this. Like first off, they're seeing you guys create this garden. You guys have animals. You're creating all these things, but then they're seeing the and they have the understanding of the science behind it. Because I know it's not just you're out in the field and you're like, yeah, and then we're just gonna put these plants together and whatever. There's actually like Max has gone and read the periodic table of elements. There's an understanding even behind like just seeing the practical, physical, here's what we're doing, but also here's why this works. And also you got the bees there, you got the animals, you got like, there's so many things that are integrated. And this is just them growing up and seeing it happen. And then it's not just, okay, we just cross-pollinated these plants and look what grew. It's like, we're taking these plants, we're chopping them up, we're eating them, we're like putting them in cans. Like this is how you live. It's a completely just, what child is growing up like that in today's world? You could be on one side of the spectrum where it's like you grow up in the suburbs or in a city, you never even see a fucking plant. Like it's just food just comes to you. You have no idea where the food comes from. You could be also on the way other end of the spectrum where it's like you grow up in destitute poverty and you don't see anything like you're living literally on a heap of garbage, literally.
That happens, actually.
That happens, right? And so like you're scavenging for leftovers that people have thrown out and like just trying to survive, and you're not learning that either, and so I'm just making the point of it's really cool to see like okay, ideally, I mean, obviously obviously we have we're giving the purpose to our children of, hey, here's what we're actually here to do. We're here to create a world that's best for all. But perhaps in future generations, the kids can grow up in this way where they're understanding all of these things. And if one of them wants to be a chef, their understanding of culinary arts is also going all the way back to the microbiome and all this. And it's like, it's not being done just because I have this position in the kitchen and I just need to work and make some money and, make a name for myself and just try to survive. It's being done from like, dude, okay, so we started with like, we're doing this composting and we have this garden and, we're growing these foods and we came up with this pepper or this plant or whatever. It's the food that you're eating right now. I put so much dedication into all this. Like we could have that expression. Actually, we're not practically there at this moment, right? But even going back further, because that's kind of like a side note.
I want to touch on that after, but finish your story, and then I want to come back to this point. Just remind me like about what I told you about with like the canning the tomatoes sauce,
Yeah.
right? And I want to open some points up. Yeah.
Yeah. But just going back to Joel Salatin, he was like, this guy, never saw a pig, out in the pasture or anything. And he sees this pig and he's like, man, I've never even seen a pig before, but, or live anyway, but, just watching these pigs out here, if I was a pig, I think this is how I would want to live because he's seen the pigs like rub up against a tree. They're out. They're just
versus
doing
being
their
in
own
a
thing.
factory, like in a cage.
Yeah,
know,
like
a,
being like
pin on
confined
concrete
and,
or some
like
shit.
in their own fucking defecation and all this shit. And he's like, no, this is how I would want to live if I was a pig. This is really beautiful, right? And the person who was interviewing Joel Salatin was like, yeah, all your animals are like that, all except for the bunnies. Like the bunnies are in cages.
They
What's
raise
up with that?"
rabbits. Yeah.
Yeah. And he's like, "Well, yeah, we don't like that either, the bunnies in the cages, but they're susceptible, like when he's like when you have a lot of um bunnies or whatever, like they're susceptible to some sort of infection or disease that they could catch or whatever." And he's like, "But ideally, like, yeah, they would be running out in the wild." She's like, "So is there a reason why you have them in cages?" He's like, "I mean, um, we don't even really like the reason why we had the bunnies is because it's what got my son into farming when he was 8 years old. And we just sort of kept him." And she's like, "But that was when your son was 8. Like, he's an adult now." Like, yeah, he's like, "That was 34 years ago." Like, okay, so he's like, "Yeah, we just kind of hold on to it because like it's what got my son into it." Like, it was like he was saying, and he's like, "This isn't the hill I'm gonna die on," like, but he was saying, acknowledging, yes, this goes against actually how I raise animals and everything that I profess, and we don't actually like it. But then there was a drop in like his logic because it also connects to, but this is what got my son into farming, and that meant a lot to him, like emotionally. And so he's like, "So I know it goes against everything that I just said, but I want to keep it for those reasons." And that's the same logic that, we're pointing out with Stephen Meyer and with, there's so many other things. It doesn't have to be just religion, but this is what people do is like, "Oh, I'm so logical over here in this realm or whatever." And it's this
And I get great
narrow, yeah,
results and things. And
yeah.
yeah.
And then when it comes to everything else, it's like that goes out the window. It's just how I feel.
Well, this may be like an extreme way of looking at that point, but he's like literally like, we're going to torture thousands of rabbits for decades just because, I have this emotional feeling about this memory about my son. Like, I mean, I think
That's
he would
actually
probably,
what it is.
cause I don't think he'd have a problem saying that we're torturing pigs in factory farms. I don't think he'd have a problem saying that. So I'm just kind of applying the same logic, but it's like, yeah, and I also pointed out to Drake when we were talking about it, like, yeah, also probably he realizes at a subconscious level, unconscious level, like whatever he's doing actually isn't going to make a difference anyways. So why be so hardcore absolutely about it? So I wanted to share a couple points
And
on
just
that.
by the way, if we could have Joel Salatin on the podcast, I'd love to interview him. He still wants
Yeah, I
to
don't
come
really
on.
I don't really care. But I can hear a little tiny voice saying, "Daddy." I see a little, like there's a little gap in the curtains, and I see this little tiny face looking in there. Guys, knocking on the window. I wonder if Katie realizes. She probably does. She might be outside. Um. Anyways, kind of just going back a little bit, expanding on some of those points you talked about. The reason why I even started looking into because I haven't actually done any crossing of the peppers. I'm just looking into it, watching some videos. That's what I start with always and decide if I want to put time into it. The only reason I even started thinking about it was because there's kind of 2 points in combination, right? I'm just realizing the obvious point was we were in the garden looking at picking tomatoes, and Max was like, "Cameron," because I always keep telling him, he's like, "Yeah, I want to make money. I want to make money," right? And I was like, he's like, "How can I make money?" And I said, "Well, instead of thinking about, because he means like right now, how can he make some money? Like, how can he physically just go without needing me to help him or do anything, right? He's trying to figure that out." And I was like, "Well, instead of just trying to figure out how you can make money, why don't you look at a problem you can solve and look at how you can make money with that?" I said, because just trying to figure out a way to make money for the sake of it, you can come up with stuff that really isn't helpful, right? So then, anyways, I think that was that because I keep talking to him about that. We're in the garden. He was like, "Oh, you know what I want to do when I'm older?" And I said, "What?" He goes, "I want to create. I want to genetically." He didn't say engineer, but he was kind of referring to like working with the genetics and stuff of tomatoes and vegetables that grow really fast, right? And I was like, "That's really cool." So it was that conversation, and then also I had been picking some okra like a few weeks ago, and when I'm out there picking okra, all right, because you have plants too, right, Mitch? What are you guys growing right?
Yep.
Are you growing anything right now?
A fuckload of weeds. No, we planted a bunch of random shit. We all have watermelons and peppers and tomatoes and
So you
okra.
don't have anything coming out right now.
There's like there's some greens coming in, but nothing crazy right now.
Okay, okay. Well, anyways, I'm sure you've had this experience, but you go out there, and I'm going out there, and like I really like the okra. Of course, we're picking tomatoes, everything, right? But I always like to get the okra, and it's like it grows at a certain point. There's just so much because we have probably like 10 okra plants, right? At a certain point, it's gonna be so much okra, and you have to get it at a certain point because if it gets too big, it's really tough and fibrous, right? So you got to get it before it gets too big, right? So every day I'm out there looking, and I like okra. I'll just literally pick it all and just eat it all right there. But eventually there'll be so much we can actually like make a meal out of it, right? Or freeze or whatever you do, can it. So, anyways, I'm out there and I'm clipping the okras, and then I noticed for the first time, and maybe I had noticed this before, but I never consciously thought about it. There was an okra that wasn't quite all the way formed. It was still partly a flower. And I looked at it and I was like, oh, I'm like, and there was one that was like almost all the way in okra, and we cut it and we opened it up and it was still like flower petals and stuff. So like the actual okra itself, before it becomes that, I mean, I didn't look this up to verify. This is just my speculation based on looking at the plants. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure this is how it actually works. Just looking at these different stages of development, the flower is like what the okra becomes, or sorry, it becomes the okra. Okay, because it looks like the flower actually takes this like pointy shape. And when I cut one open, there was still petals inside. And which maybe is not that crazy to anybody who knows anything about plants, but I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I had never really, and again, I went to school, I learned about Mendeleev and the pea plants and all that stuff. Never thought about how he actually did it. Just, oh, he was crossing peppers and learning about the different peas or whatever, and learning about the different yellow and white and all this stuff and the genetics, right? Okay. Didn't ever think about any of that stuff other than it's just like in the back of my mind, right? So, anyways, I'm looking at these okras and I'm like, wow, like the flower actually becomes that thing you're eating. So then I joined a couple pepper groups on Facebook just so if I need like advice or if I want to understand something. It's like Katie's in gardening groups, she's in homesteading groups, and I had been in a beekeeping group because then it's like you can go and ask a question if you're like, I don't know what to do here, right? So I was in this pepper group and I keep seeing people talk about all their peppers and everything, and it'll be like Reaper X Maruga or something, right? I'm like, what is that? And it's like those are the hybrids that they're making, right? And so basically, you could take the flower. Okay, so here's how it works. You take a pepper plant. It's got a flower. Okay, it has petals. Inside there is things called anthers, which is what the pollen is produced on. It's not, they don't necessarily have pollen right away, but they eventually the pollen is formed on those little anthers. And there's also this long tube in the middle, which is called the pistil, and at the end of that is the stigma. That tube, that pistil thing, is the female part of the plant. The anthers is the male part of the plant. So the pollen is like the sperm, essentially. And when that pollen gets on the tip of that pistil, on the stigma, that's like the sperm getting to the egg, essentially. Probably is a little bit more to it, but that's the essential part, right? It's like, intercourse. So you can literally take a male plant, a male flower. You can take a flower here, and you take another flower here, and you can literally just go like this with them. You can basically make the flowers, bang, right? And you can pollinate the flowers. And so what people do, Jake's like, tell me more. What people do is they take all the what do you call it, the petals off and the anthers before they get to the point where they're producing any pollen. So there's no chance that that female part got pollinated by that flower itself because they're self-pollinating. Like the wind shakes the flower and the pollen falls down and it pollinates itself. But if you take all those parts off except for the female part, then you go over here and collect the pollen from another flower of a different plant, assuming that the genetics are similar enough that they can actually produce a viable offspring. So there's like certain species of peppers where it's like they're too far separated. You collect that pollen, you go over here and you get the pollen. There's different ways to do it. You get the pollen on the female part over here. And then if it's inside, you don't have to do anything else because there's no wind or anything, right? That plant will eventually turn into that flower will eventually turn into the pepper fruit, the actual pepper that you're familiar with, right? And it'll be a hybrid of the genetics of the pepper plant you used for the male and the pepper they used for the female, or the flower that you used for the female. So when you see like the something X something, it's the female plant, or it's the female plant that you used, X the male plant that you used, right?
Now, do those seeds,
Just-
are those seeds from that one? Then can they just be planted and it will carry it on?
Yeah, and so what's interesting is you take the fruit. So if you do this on 5 different flowers, so you do the same male to female on 5 different flowers, let's say, you're going to get potentially 5 different fruits if it's successful. You take those 5 fruits, you get seeds from those 5 fruits, and you plant those, you get 5 different plants. So the fruits initially are called the F0, and they said you don't normally notice any difference between the fruit that would have normally gone on the plant versus the hybrid. But if you take those and you plant them, you're going to get 5 different variations now of, and so you might be like, okay, that sucks, I like that, okay, now let me take those and produce plants from those, and that's called the F2. And they said F2 is when you start to get to like the kind of stability point of like, okay, I like these ones. Because if you keep crossing stuff, you're just never gonna get something stable. But so by the F2 generation, now you can just basically take seeds, plant, and just keep getting that particular line of genetics that you liked. And this is how it's not natural selection. It's just it's like intelligent selection, right? Like you're choosing it, right? And that's just so fascinating to me, of like how the plants actually reproduce. And you could be so specific about it, about the genetics of it. And then to think, if you just let it happen in the wild, you're not really controlling anything, right? Now, the whole problem with evolution is the belief that evolution occurs because of that. Like, given enough time, these flowers just randomly bumping into each other will eventually produce dinosaurs. Sounds silly, but isn't that the theory? Was there first dinosaurs or flowers?
Flowers, I would assume. Yeah.
Maybe the flowers were a branch from something previous, but the thing flowers came from branched off and eventually became dinosaurs, eventually became people. That's the theory. That makes no sense. That's like, it really, when you start to boil it, and it's like, well, you just don't understand the science. Yeah, I do. Like, I mean, like, let me put it this way, and you know this too. When the scientists talk, they don't go, look, you don't understand it. Let me explain it more clearly. And you can see why that doesn't, what you think doesn't make sense. You just don't understand it. They don't do that. They go, oh, you're just trying to get everyone to believe in God and you're bad and da-da-da. And it's like, why don't you just, like a good parent, explain it more effectively for everybody?
Well,
It's like, wow, it's not my, but then they get upset, right? Like that Lawrence Krauss debate with Stephen Meyer.
I know.
They get upset. It's on the playlist. They get upset that you would go in and challenge in the school system.
Mhm.
Right? Because we watched this debate between Lawrence Krauss, Stephen Meyer, and somebody else. And Lawrence Krauss spent his opening argument just essentially maligning, disparaging Stephen Meyer.
Yeah.
And the whole gist of the argument was he's just trying to sneak Christianity into everything. He's not a scientist. He's not really that eloquent or that smart. And these theories have been tested. His theories have not been tested. He's trying to put totally untested theories into the science curriculum and put doubt in everybody. And it's tantamount to child abuse. But also, by the way, it was child abuse. And by the way, there is no God. There is no creator. There is no intelligent design. There is no purpose and meaning to the universe. It is all actually meaningless. We're all going to die eventually. The sun's going to burn out 1 billion years from now. None of anything we ever did mattered whatsoever. I'm not caricaturing his
This is literally what he
speech.
said.
So my question would be, then why does it fucking matter what we teach in science class?
Right.
But he wants people to know, but not actually understand it, because what fucking kid actually, like, there's only a very small percentage of children that come out of science class understanding science. And it's not based on the quality of the science education. And so wouldn't Lawrence Krauss make it his mission then to actually educate people instead of just defending science? Now go listen to Bernard's Science and Language in an Equal Money System.
Mhm.
And you'll see it so clearly, like, oh, if everybody had an equally effective vocabulary at the highest level, they wouldn't need to be taught science in school. They could just read the books themselves and they could evaluate for themselves. Is Lawrence Krauss right? Is Stephen Meyer right? Is there another option? Because I can read that shit and I'm like, okay, yeah, the Darwin stuff, even Darwin didn't 100% know natural selection was the driving force. He just didn't think that there was a God. And he was like, unless there was some really complex things in nature that I can't explain or this theory can't explain. Like my whole theory would collapse if there was like really complex mechanisms in nature. And he didn't even know about the complexity of all the different things in cells. Like they
Yeah.
just thought at that time cells were like a big ball of goo.
Yeah.
No joke. So they didn't even know there was fucking like literal machines and like the Krebs cycle and like I don't know, maybe they knew about Krebs cycle. I don't know. But they didn't know about the extreme complexity that at a nano fucking level that's in these things. And they didn't even know about DNA. Like think
Yeah.
about it. He didn't even know that there was such a thing as DNA and what it was, that it was a molecule and that it was a fucking like digital computer code. That even
Yeah.
Steve Jobs, or not Steve Jobs, Bill Gates said was like the most advanced computer code that we could never even conceive of designing.
Yeah. It's
And
really
so
interesting.
if you're challenging Darwin, it's like, but that guy was back in the fucking Stone Age. What are you
Yeah.
gonna say?
No, I was just gonna say that Dr. Noble, that guy, uh, like it was really interesting just hearing his take on there is selection going on, but it's not just a random selection. It's not just based on like mutations happening randomly and then you select. It's like the actual selector is you. Like you are actually directing your body in some way unconsciously, like of creating these changes within your body. And he's like, you don't have to chalk it up to like God. You don't have to say it's like, oh, just randomly, evolution just happens. It's like, no, there's um a process that's going on within you to create a new function. But also,
Yeah.
is interesting his breakdown of viruses, because he's like, yeah, viruses aren't alive, but they're still able to do all these functions. And when they come into contact with
What
your
does it mean they're not
cell,
alive? And he even said, like, well, yeah, we have to look at what we define as alive.
exactly, he does say that. And then he also says, like, I mean, because you could say that about any part of the cell. Is like, is your ribosome alive? Like if you take it outside of the cell, it's not going to be.
Let's just look at this for a moment, okay? What
Yeah.
does it mean something is alive?
Yeah.
What does it mean something is life? Like I was like, we're looking for life. Like, what does that mean?
Yeah.
Because was there life existing when there was only inert matter?
Right.
Was there?
What they would
According to
say
the
is no.
scientists,
Well, what is
no.
inert?
But then
What is
Yeah,
inert
what is
mean?
inert? It doesn't move. Yeah.
And what does matter?
right, like so, but the scientist is defining life according to. It's so funny because they will say that we're not we, but Christians, whatever creationists, intelligent design people, are anthropomorphizing the universe to say that's why there's a God. Like they're trying to make the thing that creates stuff like a human,
Mhm.
but you're anthropomorphizing what life is because you're actually looking at yourself as the highest form of life.
Mhm.
And therefore, you're judging what life is according to what you think you are and
Yeah.
according to that criteria. But how do you know Saturn isn't like, is the planet alive?
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, like, is a tree alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Pretty
Like, you could
obvious.
say the planet is not alive. No, the whole planet, come on. Like, the rocks are, but the rocks is how we got here. So, like, okay, are you alive? Yes. Is there carbon atoms alive? No. Which atoms are alive? None of them. So it's only their organization. Okay, so then how is the Earth not alive? Because
It's the
that's like
ultimate
the Earth.
organization.
It's
Yeah.
like your carbon atoms. The whole Earth, the rocks are like the carbon atoms that are part of the fundamental structure that's allowing us to exist fundamentally and that produced us. So how is it not also alive? And how does the
Mhm.
Earth exist? It only exists because Saturn and Jupiter and like all these other things exist. Galaxies, how are they not alive then?
Yeah.
Like oh, well, they don't self-replicate, but then then you're not alive. It's your DNA that's alive. But if you look at DNA and just put it like by itself, it doesn't just replicate.
Right.
How does the actual replication even occur? Why does it occur? Like, why does it when you combine certain things in a certain way? And like even the DNA itself, why does the cell start the replication process? Like, what's making that happen? And so there's this like not fundamental not understanding of what reality is, because ironically, it's like we reduce everything to like these models where we simplify stuff, and then we think it is that, and we don't realize, no, it's infinitely more, not literally technically infinitely, but kind of infinitely more than what the model is.
Did,
So
did you
why
watch that
can't
Ian McGilchrist thing? That right brain, left brain?
what'd you get from that?
Well, I don't know if this was one you sent, but it was him on the Modern Wisdom podcast. And it was cool to hear. He talks about the right brain and the left brain and how they're different and how you perceive the world. And I think he misspoke on one of them, or I got kind of lost for a minute, but you got like, I mean, I've always heard the classic, right? You're like a more right brain person or a left brain person if you're more like looking at like the numbers and you're getting very analytical versus if you're more like intuitive and you can see the whole picture,
Yeah.
right? Which who knows how fucking accurate that is, but it's a cool
Well, but it's
really
like
paradigm to look at.
that'd be
Yeah.
like if I cooked a lot and they're like, oh, you're more like a cooking brain person. It's like that's just the thing that I'm doing. Like that's not because my brain is structured. Like my vocabulary has been structured in a way where that's what I know about. But
Right.
like it's kind of like
It's
you're a
more
right brain person. It's like that's just because most of the activities I do seem to be perceived as creative activities. But like
right.
a creative person who's an artist fucking knows the left brain detail of color mixing theory.
Yeah.
They not be able to they may not be able to articulate it,
Well, so
but they
that
have
was
to know it.
that was the thing that I got from it that I found actually very helpful was like when you're learning anything new, there's a certain level of like you have to really think about it. You have to analyze it, and that's why you kind of suck at things at the beginning, typically. Right? Like if I were
You
to
don't
sit
know
down
all
and
that.
cross-pollinate these fucking peppers, I'd be like, I do my TT to make sure it's integrated, then I'm gonna learn it actually.
The
So
TT gives you a
that
huge advantage because suddenly,
massive, massive. Yeah.
like, you learn a lot faster from what you're doing. You
Yeah.
have a lot less resistance. Yeah.
Right. And so that's where like even looking at things as fundamental as like what is reality, right? Did we evolve? Where did we come from? There's like both traps you can fall into. One is where you like distill it down to this very like materialistic, like, oh, it was just these fucking rocks banging against each other, and now you got dinosaurs, and then you got me. And then there's another one though where it's like you go into the mysticism of it, and then you start like getting deluded as to what's actually going on. And so that's why with what we talk about in this group is like equality and oneness, what's best for all. So as we figure out, okay, what the fuck is going on here with reality, and you build that understanding, you build that context, the guiding principle is what's actually going to be best for all, based on what we find here. Not in some fucking fairy tale universe or some theory of what we think it is, but actually what can be proven visibly here. So
Yeah.
I don't know. What'd you guys get from that? The right brain, left brain?
But I mean, I think the big distinction that was being made was like there's a certain part of us that's like always questioning and always just like there's an uncertainty there, and then there's another part of us that's like no, it's got to be this, and like being very decisive on things, and
But that's just the balance between chaos and structure.
right.
Chaos and structure. Like you can't, like, life is not static. So you create structures. That doesn't mean just go tear them all down, but then you don't go, okay, now I'm done. Like you want to constantly expand and grow and evolve literally. And like, so
Yeah.
you create structures so you don't have to keep redoing what you've already done.
Yeah.
But the structures then can become your prison.
Right.
Instead of it just being the platform on which you then go further.
Right. And yeah, and so there was a big part of that was basically like kind of what he was saying was the society that we have right now creates a lot more chaos within everyone where they're like constantly in a point of not able to trust themselves, they're not able to get to a point where they're like, okay, this is a good foundation and like we can move on. But like, because you can't build anything if you're constantly just like,
that is actually a form of structure.
Hmm.
Um, Okay, when
How do
you're
you mean?
raising bees, you have a queen bee, and she releases a pheromone,
Yeah.
and that pheromone organizes the bees.
Mm.
And when the queen's not present, they're not organized. They like won't do the activities properly.
Mm.
So you could say, so if you look at the structure of our world, there has to be structure for everyone to fit into.
Mhm.
Everyone's not going around in chaos doing whatever they want. Because like you might say, well, like, and I'm not saying you were saying this, but it's like, oh, there's this chaos inside everybody. It's like, but they seem to be doing all the same stuff.
Mhm.
Seems like there's a lot of organization actually, even within that quote chaos. The chaos is, it's not really chaos. I'm trying to explain. Chaos is not what people think it is. What really is going on is you're just in your mind participating in a lot of feelings while your body is being directed in a certain structured, organized way,
Oh yeah,
which
yeah,
we
yeah.
call the economy,
Yeah.
instead of you directing your body.
Yeah.
Now, the problem is like you're pointing out, it's like, but the moment you think about doing that, it's like you're lost because you feel in conflict with the structure that exists. You can't go against the structure that exists.
Yeah.
You can't go against it as an individual. You can't even go against it as a small group. You have to stand as within it, understand how it works, and then make it not make necessarily make the structure better, but create structures. It's like if you just tear your house down because you want a new house, that's not going to work. You build a new house, and then you can do whatever you want with the old one. So you could even take bits and pieces from the old one. And so if you look at our system, it's not so much the physicality of our system that's the problem. It's the rules. It's the agreements that
Right.
we
'Cause
have
it's like pretty fucking handy.
unconsciously.
Like a lot of the stuff we have here is the baseline infrastructure. I mean, you can see as we look at, okay, what does the world look like as it becomes best for all? It's like there's a lot of helpful shit. Like highway. Like I could hop on the fucking freeway and in 14 hours I'm at Cameron's house, basically. Or
Well, and
like
people would complain, well, but a highway goes through and kills the habitat. And it's like, that's just because it wasn't planned with that stuff in consideration. It's not
Right,
because the
right,
highway is bad.
right.
I want to go back real quick to this point that the canned tomatoes thing, right?
Mhm.
Because when I was talking with Drake, I was basically filtering a bunch of honey. We got like a gallon of honey. I only took a few frames from our hive, but it was quite the process to like filter it so there's not just a bunch
What are
of
you
honeycomb
filtering
in it.
out? I've
The
never
honeycomb.
heard of filtering honey. Oh,
The honeycomb.
because don't people eat the honeycomb?
You
Yeah.
can, but I mean, you don't necessarily want it in your like if you're gonna put it on your cereal or something, do you want a bunch of
Yeah.
wax bits that you're
Well,
gonna
I
chew
eat
up?
honeycomb cereal, so
Zero honeycomb in that cereal, by the way. I don't
do
care what that fucking cartoon bee told
you
you.
do something with the honeycomb though? Because that would be bad. Because Jess will buy that at the
You can
store.
melt it down. You can melt it down and use it for
Oh,
stuff.
just
You could
throw it to the pigs. Dude, that's
no,
some
it's not
fucking
edible. Like you can eat it, but it's not
yeah.
digestible. There's no benefit as far as I know from eating it.
I'm pretty sure it's hydrophobic. Hydrophobic.
It's wax. It's just
Yeah.
wax. Like you can eat it and you can just eat it to get the honey into your body from it. But the wax itself, as far as I understand, you don't digest it. So it'll pass it. But
Burt's Bees, Mitch?
Yes.
Yeah,
Don't
there
eat
you
that.
go. That's what you do with honeycomb.
yeah, but you can make candles, you can make balm, you can do a lot of stuff with it.
You say you can make bombs?
Balm.
lip
Oh.
balms.
Oh,
Lip balms.
yeah, man. I was gonna have
if you
to
want your
report
lips to explode like the Kardashians,
Oh yeah. No,
Like
I thought you got
Kylie.
them to sting you. I thought that's how they did it. It's like actually venom.
Yeah.
Isn't it bee venom?
that's part of the lip balm. It's
Just let the bees
Oh,
sting your
nice,
lips. I
nice.
don't
Yeah.
recommend that. I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
So
Okay,
anyways,
so you're filtering it. Yeah.
so we're doing all that. And like we're talking about all this stuff that we're talking about right now. And I was just telling him like how exciting it is and fun. It's a lot of hard work, but work just meaning you have to physically do it. And that means you can't do something else at the time. But looking at the shelves that I built on the wall with like all these cans on it, and it's like filling up with like honey, canned peaches that we got from an orchard that we literally picked, cans of tomato sauce. We have like these jars of like different mushrooms, like some kind of tramites. I mean, Katie knows what they are. That are
Grammys?
in like, yeah, some kind of like mushrooms that we collected, right?
Oh, so what the fuck is a trammy?
And
Making up words over here. Have
and
you heard of this word, Drake?
No, I
It's
don't
a
know what
mushroom
it
term.
says. Yeah.
Obviously.
science and
Cameron's a
language, science
connoisseur.
and language, science and language, right? I only know the word because I mean, I've heard the word before, but I didn't know it was relating to mushrooms. I don't know what it means. It's probably just
That
like
sounds so fucking. I just have to say that's
it's
so
like the
fucking cool.
species name or the genus or some
Like
shit. You know what I'm
everyone's
saying?
like, oh, I'm gonna do fucking dream boards, right? And their dream boards like some fucking Ferrari and shit that you can't even fucking drive on like a gravel road. And you know, it's like actually what the dream board is like having amazing fucking food that you created, and you can like share it with your friends and
Yeah,
stuff.
I don't have a dream board.
You just have a dream life.
These are
Jeremy.
termites, by the way.
Hey, that looks like Rishi.
Yeah, that's probably in the termite family or something.
Turkey tails.
Ganoderma.
I think they're just turkey tails. I'm guessing.
Oh. I don't know.
I'm
'Cause they got the
guessing, I don't
fucking
know that.
dead Latin language, and then you got the modern day twist on it. Turkey tail. Way easier.
She's got them in some kind of like alcohol solution, so it makes like a tincture, right? And it has different benefits.
Mm.
Anyway, so
I see what
you
you're
could go to
trying
the
to do
store
there,
and buy
Cameron.
these things. What?
Alcoholism. Just kidding.
Anyways,
Cameron's just
yeah,
Cameron's just
I'm gonna soak mushrooms in some vodka for a year so that way I can get drunk. Anyway, so we got that. There's I'm trying to think what else is up on the shelf right now. There's now there's oh, I've got these jars of like hot sauce that I made, and then I've got another thing that I'm fermenting a bunch of stuff for hot sauce that I'm going to blend up later. Have a fermented hot sauce that's good for your probiotic stuff and allegedly.
Damn.
And just seeing all that fill up, and I was just explaining how like cool it is. And I had this memory when I was a kid going to my great grandparents' farm in South Carolina at Myrtle Beach, and not even realizing it was a farm, even though there was like I remember being out there. There's rows of like tomatoes and stuff. And I remember standing in those rows looking at the tomatoes, not really processing what the fuck it was. Like that it's a farm. And then going in their basement and like
It's
that really interesting musty smell of a basement. I just remember that.
Yeah.
And I remember the walls and racks of like canned food and being like, what is this? Like what is going on? Like, like I understood what it was, but also kind of like
why?
Why? And like my great grandfather, this is on my adopted father's side. So I'm not something related per se, but he was like a World War II bomber pilot. And I'm assuming, I don't know if he was doing this before or after the war, but I'm assuming he probably got some kind of like GI farm grant and like made a farm. I don't know. That's awesome. I don't know the history of it, but probably something like that. Right? So anyways, that's in my memory. And now I'm looking at what we're doing and it's like, I'm really doing all that, but it's fun. Like it's exciting. It's not always fun. Like shoveling wood chips is not fun. There's a lot of parts of it that are physically like not fun. Like even like raising cattle is really cool when you see the cattle or when you slaughter it or whenever you're feeding them or whatever. But when you're putting up the electric wire, it's not fun to do that. It's a lot of work. So like people watch the Joel Salatin, we don't just listen to it. We actually fucking do it. And like Sandro was talking about in a comment, he was like, yeah, you guys are saying you love all that Joel Salatin now, but when you start actually doing the rotational grazing, it's a lot of work. I'm like, yeah. It is. But it's really cool because the point that really spurred all this was I was looking at the canned tomato sauce because Katie had made the tomato sauce and canned it. So we have a pressure canner and we know how to do water bathing as well, which is just ways of making it canned. So it will sit on a shelf and be preserved for a certain amount of time. And tell me if you guys ever had this experience. Maybe in some ways you have, maybe not specifically to the things I'm going to specifically refer to, but like the first time I drank raw milk, I felt weird about it.
Yeah.
The first time I ate a mushroom from out in the ground in the forest, I felt weird about it. Am I
supposed to do this?
I mean, yeah.
I felt weird.
Yeah.
The first time I picked up a wild snake and held it in my hands, I felt weird about it.
I've never done
The
that.
first time I slaughtered a pig, I felt very weird about it. The first time I slaughtered chickens, I felt very weird. The first time I ate an egg
From one of your
that literally
chickens.
came from the chickens and all I did was wash it off and just ate the raw egg, I felt very weird doing it. Like you said, like you put it perfectly. Like, am I supposed to be doing this? Like, not even like it's like there's so much in that question. Am I
Yeah.
supposed to? Am I allowed to?
Yeah.
Like the feeling is, am I allowed to do it?
Yeah.
I experience it as a cognitive dissonance of like it's icky.
Yeah.
Like I remember I got sick one time at a family picnic, and my grandpa said it was because the mayonnaise was left out in the sun and it was salmonella. Maybe that is what happened. But then in my mind, eggs have salmonella.
Hmm.
You don't eat a raw egg because it's got salmonella in it potentially. But like literally, that's not how it works. It's not inside the egg.
Right.
It's just what's going on the outside. That's the issue. And yes, obviously, if you cook some stuff and leave it out, things can develop and so forth. But even that is like, it was just this thing some person who doesn't know what the hell they're talking about said, and like my mind went wild with it and made its own drew its own conclusions based on total assumptions about things. So now I have all these feelings about things, and it's like I'm trying to think what else I can relate it to. The first time I shot a gun, I wasn't really shooting a gun because I shot guns when I was a kid. The first time I bought a gun, I felt weird. The first time I rode an ATV, I felt weird. Like there's just all these things that felt so weird because it wasn't a part of my vocabulary growing up.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let me go back to the point. So I'm looking at these canned tomatoes in these jars, and I had this realization. I go, because I said it to Katie, I was like, oh, that's literally what you're buying at the store when you buy spaghetti sauce in a jar. It's just that. But when you go to the store, I don't feel weird eating that. I'm like, oh, but it's all official and it's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
Someone
like,
who
why
knew
is it
what they were
weird?
doing. Some expert did it,
Right.
right?
So I'm gonna hold that for a moment because, like, firstly, I want to get across like how cool it is to have all that stuff yourself. Now, a lot of people go into this point of I want to be self-sufficient, but why do you not? Let me put it this way: if what I'm saying is true, that the stuff on my shelf is fundamentally not different than the stuff you're buying in the store, then why do you want the stuff in your shelf and not the stuff in the store? What would be some of the reasons?
Well, I mean, are we talking about the chemicals that goes into it, or
But
no?
just I'm saying, what are some of the objections?
I'm just saying, like, if I like when you sent me that label of the pepper or whatever the hot sauce, and I'm reading that label, I'm like, I don't want any of that fucking shit in my fucking hot sauce. Like,
Like, do I have to put sodium benzoate in there? You know, yeah.
yeah, like all the bullshit that was, I was like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't want any of that. And in
I
fact,
could just make it at home without that stuff.
yeah, like, okay, even like when we make chocolate milk, could I go to a store and get like a chocolate milk? Sure, but is it gonna have raw milk in it? No. It's gonna be the bullshit that, they
Is it gonna have like sucralose? You
homogenited,
know,
yeah, bullshit, whatever. And I'm like, I don't want that. Like, first off, I just don't want that in my body. But I also don't prefer it either. Like, I like we're excited
what
for,
if you could go to the store
yeah.
and it was all the exact same things you would do?
I mean,
What do you mean?
okay, the only other thing would be, can I trust it?
Right.
Like, can I
But
trust?
let's say you could. Let's say you
Okay,
could.
then that'd be awesome. That'd be great. Like, I wouldn't mind that at all. Like,
So
I'm just gonna say this, like, if the only thing that I can think of like, because there is a part of me that's like, there are certain things that I would love to have just at home, regardless of if it's, the store doing it or not, doing it
not
the
that you have
exact
to
same way.
choose
Right.
like one or the other,
Yeah.
but wouldn't it be cool if you don't have to every single thing you want always make it yourself and have it on
Yeah.
hand? Like you could literally go to the store and it's basically maybe you have some nuanced way of making it, which is why you'd still want to make it at home.
Yeah.
But you could just go to the store and get a version that you're totally cool with also.
Right. Like, okay, like cookies, dude. you know, you make some fresh cookies, it's fucking amazing. Like I
Right.
love
So
like
so why would you want to ever buy it from the store? Right.
right. And honestly, like every time we buy cookies, like even from bakeries that we like and stuff, I'm like, but it's not our fucking cookies.
But like tomato sauce for spaghetti. What if
Yeah.
there was some fucking really good tasty spaghetti sauce and it was canned and like instead of you having to store it all in your house, you could also, but you could buy some at the store and you could trust it. It didn't have a bunch of weird shit in it.
I wouldn't mind that. I wouldn't mind that at all.
So
Yeah.
so my point is, and so the other point is you can't trust that it's always gonna be there.
Yeah.
Because the fear of like, well, if I rely on the system completely, I don't have anything at home. What if it's not there anymore? What if something happens, or what if I don't have the money, or something like that, or things prices go up? So there's all of this points. So I'm saying this because like Mitch, you always like to bring in this point of like, hey, there's really cool stuff in the system. Like we have Amazon, we have that infrastructure. Why can't we just use it for everybody, right? And I'm like, yeah, like even the point of I could go to the grocery store and get some canned tomato sauce or spaghetti sauce. If everything was just being done at every level, considering what was best, that would be fucking awesome. Also, I'm not like everybody needs to be self sufficient. I'm not a fucking prepper. It's just I'm realizing here at the current moment in time, if we want to have spaghetti sauce for our family, you kind of have to make it ourselves. You know, like it's not like we can never have it otherwise, but like on a regular basis, do we want to constantly be putting certain chemicals in our bodies or whatever that we don't even know what's in there? Because like at the fucking company X, you know, tomato sauce company, spaghetti sauce company, are they sitting there going like, what's the best way we can make this for everybody? Or are they like,
No.
how can we put more chemicals to make it more addictive, to simulate the flavor that people want, that gets them wanting this one, coming back, wanting more, spending more money on tomato sauce at the expense of any other thing they're going to spend money on? And what's our bottom line and how can we make it cheaper? Like that's the way you can't fucking blame them. That's the way our economy works.
Okay, that's like that video that I sent you guys last night of like the L'Oreal guy. Like there's a guy who was just making like a TikTok or whatever, but somebody from L'Oreal had reached out like, hey, can you make a video promoting our products and we'll pay you for it in the style that you usually make your videos. And he's like, dude, if they knew what I went viral for, I don't think they'd be asking me this, but sure, I'll make the video for you, right? And he just goes through and he's like, okay, what do all these companies have in common? They're all owned by the same people, and they all put this bullshit in their products that actually they're being sued right now for making people's hair fall out, and they're putting all these like different chemicals. He's like, and if I'm just being, nice about it, I could say probably because that's the cheapest thing, to put in. But is it actually? Like, I don't know. Like, it seems a little weird that they all put this shit in. Like, I don't know what it actually does, but let's just say it's the cheapest thing. We can get really conspiratorial here and talk about like, oh, they're doing this for X amount of reasons or whatever. But like, even if that's not the case, it's still some shitty product that we've been basically propagandized to believe like that's just normal and that's acceptable and that's okay. And when you make it in your home, like you put some ingredients together yourself in your home, that is icky, wrong, bad.
That's how I felt.
Yeah.
That is how I felt.
Yeah. Well, and we've never had a reference point. I've had, I guess, a few reference points of people who do it and it was actually cool. But like, I remember when we were looking at moving out here, we knew a couple people that actually like raised their own chickens and they had ducks and stuff. And like, I remember the first time we went to their house, it was really fascinating because you could tell they did it right? They had done a lot of the research and everything. They've been doing it for a few years, and they like sent us home with like 24 eggs and like all this food and this bread and this sourdough starter and some fucking tinctures. So like, we literally have so much stuff. Just take it. I was like, damn, this is cool. But I think a lot of times the only reference point we have like this fake reference point of what it would look like for it to be the best, right? You have the brands at the stores that are like, oh, the honest company or whatever the fuck they call themselves. And they're like, just clean ingredients, we swear. And so they're like playing on it, but it's still just like this fucking weird.
But they put it like in a brown paper wrapper, so it's like playing on the feeling of natural and
Right, yeah, and so
And they got it into the store, so it must be okay. You know,
right,
it's
and so you fall into this delusion of then thinking, oh great, we're doing it, good job guys, we don't have to do anything more than that. That's good enough, right? And or you find the people who are like, I can remember like going to these different different farmers markets and stuff where you see these people who are like, oh, we make our own, deodorant, and you're like, and they like look just like dirty hippies or something. You're like, I don't want that. So we have all these fucking not best versions of things, but it's cool because that's actually like what we're figuring out in this group is this is actually what it looks like to do it right. Like that's why we're getting a cow from you guys, because I've seen, okay, you can drink the raw milk. It's amazing. It's actually way better. And it's not
oh, I'm
that
like your
hard to
guinea pig,
handle.
basically. Yeah.
Yeah, Cameron's a guinea pig.
he
It's not all of
survived. Okay, I guess I can
even
try
It's
with,
it.
like, okay,
but
Cameron didn't die over the last 3 years, so it's probably okay.
but even think about it, like how you guys approached raising your kids is like a model for all of us. It's like if you would have asked me 8 years ago, could you imagine homeschooling your kid and you're just really going to use this program and these principles and and you're gonna like figure that out. I'd be like, dude, that sounds I could not imagine myself doing that. Um, but now I'm like, oh, this is fucking amazing. But even all the shit you got to look at as a parent of like, okay, well, what do they put in these? There's this pressure of like, get your kid a vaccine, or these 20 fucking vaccines they have to get. And you're like,
80.
yeah, and you're like, well, I don't think I want that. But then you're like, but is my kid gonna die if they're like playing at the park? It's all the shit you don't know. And if you're not careful, then you're like, well, I just gotta go focus on making money.
That's so funny. That's
It's
so
but
funny.
we have such a perfect solution here with everything we do.
Mitch, so yesterday we ran into our pediatrician's wife, right?
Be a cool pediatrician or a fucked? I would imagine if you've got a good. Don't you have a good one now?
You think we'd go to just like a fuck you
Well,
PhD?
no, I don't know. I
So
remember you saying
so
something that they're good though.
yeah. No, the pediatrician that we have, like they're really like um the reason why we chose them was because they were willing to come to our house after, the baby was born and do the initial checkup. And then after that, they're just like we also vetted them on, what's your stance on vaccines and all this? And are you gonna coerce us into some bullshit? And they were basically like, no. Like, I mean, we'll talk about like if there's a situation where we think there's an intervention that needs to be had, we'll talk about it. But at the end of the day, it's your choice, and we're not going to force anything on you. We were like, okay, that's cool. Um, and then they also weren't like super hippie. Like they're just like, we went through the complete medical system. We understand that it's really flawed. In fact, we started challenging it ourselves, a few years ago, and we realized like, oh wow, there's a lot that we didn't know. And so they were willing to question things and willing to actually be, reasonable and practical about things. But I was bringing that up because we went to a farmer's market. We ran into the pediatrician's wife, and we were just like, oh, hey, what's going on? And we were just talking, and we were talking about the foods at the farmer's market and all that. And then she's like, I don't know how we ended up on the topic of vaccines specifically, but she's like, yeah, our practice right now is about like a 40-50 split where it's like 40% are like no vaccines, 50% are they do some vaccines or they're on some sort of modified schedule of like they want to take vaccines. And then she's like, and the other 10%, they're just asking for every vaccine. And we're like, are you sure? Like she's like, that's the group that like makes us really uncomfortable because they're just like blindly accepting like we checked online and we're supposed to get this vaccine, like we're coming in for it. She's like, you don't have to. Like please don't.
Damn.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. But it's like people will blindly follow whatever the system already has in place. That's what's going on. And here's the man. Okay, so I don't know if you guys watched that video that I sent, but the L'Oreal one. But I just
No,
want
I
to
didn't see that one.
let me just give you some context here, because the guy's like, he's like, kind of making it fun of like, I'll do your video, I'll promote your product, sure, I'll talk about L'Oreal, but before I do, I just went and looked up L'Oreal, saw who it was owned by, and he's showing like it's like the part owners are like Blackstone and some other company or whatever. He's like, that's normal. Here's the biggest owner, and
BlackRock or
basically,
Blackstone?
I I think he's Blackstone maybe.
Okay,
I don't know. It might have been BlackRock. I don't know. One of it's the same
anyways,
thing.
something.
Yeah. Um, but then he's like, okay, but at the top here, this is the person who basically like founded this, the family that founded this is the Betancourt family, right? Which they're a French family or whatever. He's like, so you look into them, and this is the daughter. She's the current owner because the mom passed away, but she's the current owner. She's like worth billions or whatever. But when her mom was the one running this, she was like the richest woman alive, period. Right? And like billions and billions to her name and everything. And like he starts going through just some history of this family and specifically of the mom. And he's like, dude, if you look into this mom, what they were doing when she was running things is uh, there was some controversy where there were these tapes that were leaked from the butler of their home. The butler was secretly recording when she would have these meetings with different politicians in France, basically like bribing them to either give her a tax break or promote like give her some entryway into hey, we're gonna introduce these products here or whatever, and these are safe and all this stuff. And so he had taped all this stuff and released it, leaked it. And then the two news corporations or news media news, I don't know, whatever, that were reporting on this, they got broken into and robbed specifically for those tapes.
What a weird, what a
Yeah,
weird thing to steal.
right. And then like uh they said it was an unknown party that did this, and he's like,
Who could it possibly have been?
yeah, I wonder who would just go in and steal those things. And then she was also
Everybody hide your tapes. Someone's randomly running around stealing your recordings of random cassette tapes. Just hide all your cassette tapes.
right. No, just these. But is also interesting because the bribery was going all the way up to the president, right? And so literally there was someone who was campaigning, and it was his job, and his whole campaign was, we are taxing the wealthy. We are not letting the wealthy get away with not being taxed. Meanwhile, there's recordings of him at this woman's house and basically taking a massive bribe to not tax her, right? And giving her a rebate of even $30 million or francs or euros, whatever the fuck it was, right? 30 million, right? And so it was just like, wow, the corruption runs so deep that it's all the way like through through the president, through the entire government of France. And I'm bringing that up because it's like people just will accept what the authority or the system already has in place. It's not questioned. And meanwhile, this is what's behind that. This is what's actually, infiltrating all of that. And so what you're really accepting is just money running the scene, right? And we can see that in just how blindly people accept that in the debates. Can we get into the debates, or did you have something more that you wanted to share?
Oh, we can talk about that.
Okay, because I've got some video. I've got some video fucking footage for you guys. Hang on, oh man. All right, here we go. Check this out. Watch the debates. All right. This is one of my favorite parts of the debate. I don't know, where am I on this screen? Am I like in the middle? Am I like
No, you're good. You're in the corner.
All right, cool. Check this out. Oh, let me share, optimize for screen share. All right, there we go. All right. This is dude, I don't know about you guys, but when I tuned into this, I was like, is this real? Like the way that Biden's talking? But this
Yeah,
was
it was just crazy.
right. this part right here, the first question that I had, because like usually during the debates, there's like a live audience, right? And like people are applauding when, one politician says something, and
Oh no, they totally rigged it for him, 100%. Like they
there,
tried to make it as much help as they could give him. Period.
right, right. But check this out. This is they were asking, I don't know, Biden's asking you, I gotta go back even further. Hang on, let me just go right here. All right. Um, just listen to this, and then and then we'll talk about it after.
We have 1,000 trillionaires in America. I mean, billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where they, in fact, pay 8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%, 25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 million, billion dollars, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our healthcare system, making sure that we're able to make every single solitary person eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID, excuse me, with dealing with everything we have to do with, look, if we finally beat Medicare.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
Well, he's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're
All right,
putting
okay, I just want to say that. Right?
I'm surprised Trump didn't like just acknowledge for a moment, like, what the hell was that?
No, he did. He
Yeah.
did. There were other
Okay.
scenes.
There was one later where he goes, I don't know what he was saying. He doesn't know what he's saying.
Yeah,
Okay,
it
okay.
literally just says that, like, which is
That
hilarious,
was
right? Okay, but
ridiculous.
Biden's talking about taxing the rich here, right? In this,
I understood what he was saying. Of course, at the end, he doesn't know. He clearly, it's like he's struggling to like finish the point.
yeah,
He's just trying to remember something to say, but even if you take the incoherence of the way he's saying it out of the picture, what he's saying still also doesn't make sense.
okay,
Like from a just even if he was a good speaker and he said it eloquently, I'm not saying it doesn't make coherent sense. I mean, it's like it'd be like saying, okay, there's this giant house fire, and like what I'm gonna do is make sure that we have a water hose next to the house, and then that's gonna put out the fire. I'm like, that's not gonna happen.
dude. Okay,
Like, it doesn't actually make sense what you're saying.
Here's what he said. Here's what he said. There's 100 billionaires. If we tax them all at 24 or 25%, we would get 500 billion over 10 years. Okay, which would eliminate the debt. Now, let me
It's not
just
even
let me just break that down for you. 500 billion over 10 years. Do you know how much national debt we have in 1 year in the United
hold on.
States?
There's how many billionaires?
100.
So 100 billion
Uh,
times 10
uh,
is a trillion.
okay, yeah.
Times 24%.
Uh-huh.
25% is what?
250.
250 billion.
Yeah.
Where's he getting the 500 billion?
I don't know. I don't know.
And also, are you taxing them 25% of their total net worth? Like, what do you mean? Like, if there's 100 billionaires,
Yeah.
and then later he says there's 1,000 billionaires. So
Right.
it's hard to decipher which part of it is he's just old and not getting the numbers right, because he 3 times said the wrong, like he said 2 different versions of it. He said trillionaires, no, I mean billionaires, and then he said 24% or 25% either number, and then he said, and then the other one, I forget which was the other point. He did it again.
And then I meant billion.
Billion. He did it 3 times. So that's just showing, like, I just want to make this comment. Like, it's like it's funny because you could like laugh at it, but like when I'm watching that guy, I'm just imagining like also fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not judging him any more than I'm judging anybody else, but I'm not like, oh, this poor man. Like, yeah, fuck him. Okay, but it's like I don't feel sorry for him from the perspective of like, oh, pity this poor man. It's just more like it's just really sad watching that happen. It's like just from like if you're a human being, do you know what I mean? Like imagine you took someone out of an old folks home who was like literally senile and sat him up there and like put all that pressure on them. Like, look, the guy got himself there. He's responsible. He's, you know, he's also Joe Biden. Like, I'm not trying to be like, oh, poor this guy, but it's just like, actually, it's just like really fucking sad. And also, it's fucking pathetic that this is the greatest country in the world. And I mean that. Like, yeah, whatever that fucking Muslim dude says about the West, all that aside, it's still the greatest country in the world, period. Like, even with all the fucked up bullshit that goes on, it's like something can be great, and that doesn't mean it's the best.
Yep.
It is the greatest country, period. And it can be way better. It could actually be made best, and the whole world could be made best. So, but it really is the greatest. And
It's just
this is
interesting.
the fucking president.
Yeah.
And
I
it also shows you everybody went back to work the next day. The government still
Mhm.
functioned. Everything's still going on like nothing happened, even though everyone's talking about how pathetic this is. What does that fucking tell you about the reality of our system?
Yeah.
It's a system. It ain't a fucking person.
Right.
Because how come everybody who works in the government wasn't like, what the fuck? Like, what am I doing? Like, what am I working for? Like, no,
Yeah.
the military kept functioning. They kept taking their orders. They kept going to work. They kept doing whatever they're doing. Like, and that guy, like, it'd be like, I don't even know how to explain it. Because here's the thing. This is actually, you know, Bernard has this really cool, you guys said I'm talking about this article he wrote a long time ago of like the greatest teacher in the world, George W. Bush.
Mhm.
Okay. And you'll understand if you go read it, the context. Right now, Joe Biden is the greatest teacher in the fucking world. He is the best example of anything you could ever imagine because he's showing you this is his gift to humanity. Like, we could sit here all day and be like, look, if you actually study the theory of evolution and by natural selection, there's so many fucking holes. Like, why are people still believing in this? You could say, look at all this stuff that happened with COVID. Why are you still trusting XYZ? Look at all of the shit that's happening with the war. Why are you still trusting the media? Look at look at all these Common Core math examples where they make you feel stupid for making a common sense answer. Like, why are you trusting the education system? But like here, it's like the number one person who runs the greatest country in the world, the most powerful military, the most powerful economy, period, in the world. Listen to this guy. Like, how do you now look at the world and go, oh, why am I trusting anything? Like, we need to take responsibility for everything. And I can't sit here and blame anything anymore because how did this guy get into office? I allowed it. How like, what the fuck? Like it's right in your fucking face. And then the only other person on the debate stage with him is a former president who was already president, who totally fucked up at the end of his thing, whether you even liked anything he did ever anyways, and literally is being convicted left and right. Like, which you can either say is because he's a fucking asshole idiot who deserves it all, or you can be like, he's literally being persecuted by his fucking political enemies. Either way, it's like, it's so absurd. With like that debate, which wasn't even a debate. And Max, we watched it together. Me and Max Seneca watched it together. Kais was in there too, but Max afterwards was like, so who won? Like, so who do you think won that debate? And I was trying to explain to him it wasn't a real debate. Like, there was no winner. There was no, like, the actual winner will be determined by the election. There's a lot of things that can happen in between. A real debate, you would pull everybody up front, the audience. You would see afterwards who changed their mind about a specific issue. That would determine typically who, quote, won the debate. That's kind of how you normally. So this isn't a real debate where someone wins. And I explained in that context. But I'm like, it's so insane that this is it. This is the ultimate of what's running our world, what's making all the decisions. And then people want to argue like, well, how do you talk about what's best for all? How can you blah, 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 blah. And it's like, are you fucking paying attention to anything happening in reality at all? Okay, that's my rant for now. I'll let you guys have the floor, but it's just like, holy shit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it really is. That Destiny article on George Bush being the greatest teacher, very, very applicable because now it's Biden.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a really good point. It's a really great point because, like, okay, going back to, feeling icky when you're like, oh, I'm doing this myself and I'm taking responsibility for this, and I'm going kind of against the system.
I'm not supposed to be president. I'm not supposed to be in charge. I'm not supposed to have
Yeah.
an influence on reality. Everything that happens in the system is to make you feel like you shouldn't be taking any direction over reality whatsoever.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But the
So you feel
alternative
icky
is
about it.
like this is what you have as your actual president right now. Like,
The alternative actually is you're going to go to hell for all of eternity.
oof. Okay. All right. All right. Hey, guy.
Well, yeah, because we're creating hell. I mean,
I mean, but
hell being
in
reflected back to us.
like at every level here on Earth, in the hereafter, at every level, that is the fucking reality that
Yeah.
people don't want to face, and they want to. It's like if there's a fire in your house, and it's gonna burn down. Okay, so that's like going to hell, and you're like, no, I'm not gonna go to hell because I'm gonna sprinkle fairy dust on my fire. So I'm like, no. So now what everyone else does is go, what are you talking about? There's no fire. Okay, so the options here are sprinkle fairy dust or there's no fire. No, there's a fire and it's burning the house down. And now we have to actually put water on the fire and put it out. And everyone's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about?
Get this guy out
Like
of
that's the fucking where we're at in this world. It's like, well, either just rocks banged together and made human beings one day, or there's this superior supreme God who's all loving and all knowing, who creates every single possible thing, period, but also anything negative, you don't get any blame for him. But if you want to actually solve these negative things, also you can't, because your excuse is that God is the one that directs reality.
Yeah.
That's where we're at right now.
So yeah, I mean, it's not your fault. I mean, it is your fault. All the negative things are your fault. All the positive things cannot be attributed to you. That's only because of God. And your life is meaningless as well, just so you know. And everything that you do is meaningless.
But if you're good, at some point, theoretically, you can go hang out with this God forever and ever and ever, and then never be bored again, I guess.
Listen, we have to teach you to think in these ways because your life is meaningless, so that you know that your life is meaningless. And we cannot
God gave us free will. That's why there's so much evil in the world, right? So that's why, but he has a plan for the world. He has a plan. So at the end of the day, God will win.
Yeah.
Well, okay, no, because we have free will. So I say he ain't gonna fucking win because I'm never gonna go along with it. So right there, you're like, your fucking God's plan is bullshit. Because I'm not going along with it. Oh, well, then you're just gonna go to hell. Then I don't have free will. Because if you're saying God is just going to punish me and ultimately create heaven anyways, just do it in the fucking first place. Well, he didn't want to create just robots that just blindly follow him. No, he created robots that couldn't fucking understand that they should have followed him, and then said, well, but you can freely choose me, but then also you're going to be punished forever if you don't. Like, so there isn't free will.
Yeah.
And then people's idea of exercising the free will to follow God's plan is just accepting that God has a plan and going along with it. How is that in any way a practical guide for living in physical reality? Like, we're here in physical reality because we have free will, so we can choose God. Okay, so how do you choose God? You just accept him, that he directs all things, and give all your decisions to what would he agree with. What? Well, so why can't I do that without God? Why can't it just be like, what? Like, why do I even have to believe in a God to do that?
Yeah.
Like, can you guys help me? Like, really? Like, I
think
I've spent my whole life trying to understand how this totally retarded idea could actually be the thought process of a mature, reasonable person who actually cares about life.
They're not mature and they're not reasonable. So it's honest. Like how I've come to make sense of this is there's generally two types of beings in our world. There's one type who actually goes, okay, I give a fuck, I want to figure this out, and I'm open to figuring this out. Like, how could we actually make this the best it could be? And then there's another type of being that's like, no matter what, I'm gonna choose fucking spite. But I'm gonna masquerade as 1,000 different characters I could be. I could be the ultimate scientist. I could be the ultimate religious person. I could be the ultimate fucking whatever. But at the core, they're choosing spite and self-interest only. So I'm here to find the others that can at least appreciate the common sense and are open to that. And then over time, we can filter out the others that are just fucked. And then more people can really see. So that way, you know, you have a kid right now who could go really down either path. But will we show up and knock on their door and help sell their parent on, hey, this is why this would make sense?
Can you imagine if I said, well, we should just put all the people who don't want to agree with what's best for all in forced education system to like learn how to be best for all? People would feel like, oh, that's some kind of crazy shit. It's like, but we literally do that right now, and we just make kids stupid.
Yeah.
Like, you're okay with forcing kids to be stupid, but not
Yeah.
okay with, like, of course, in my version of the education system that people be forced into, it wouldn't be like at gunpoint. It would be like giving them every possible way of understanding why they should do it. And like, you know what I mean? Like,
Right now,
because
we
it wouldn't be
have
best to just force them, because that wouldn't be them actually doing it.
we do have a forced mandatory education system. If you don't go, like there are some.
We already have all those things people would use as the like objection to what we're suggesting. It's like, we wouldn't be saying what we're saying if we agreed with that way of doing it in the first place.
I remember seeing, like, I don't know if this was in like someone's yearbook or what, but there's a guy who is basically saying like, the only reason why I showed up to school was because y'all would put my mother in jail if I didn't. Like, it was like, I mean, he's not lying. Literally,
Well,
like that's what they
There
do.
are
Is
definitely
like,
countries where that's literally true.
but I mean,
Right.
that's also true
Even
here.
states too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true here. Like, oh, that's truancy. You go to jail, or your parents go to jail.
Right. But the thing is that it's like every day actually taking responsibility to forgive all the points where you feel inferior to the system. Because when you look at it and you look at, let's say, the screen, right, and it's got CNN in the background and Trump and Biden, and you're like, oh, well, either you go into polarity of either, oh, they're so stupid, or you're like, oh, I could never get there. But either way, it's like, no, self-perfection is actually you equalizing yourself to that. And going hardcore with the self-forgiveness too. Like all this, like, don't be a pussy with self-forgiveness. Like a lot of people are like, oh, I'm gonna do my writing once a day and I'll make sure I say my self-forgiveness, versus like you actually are here to fucking forgive yourself for playing small and to correct yourself to become the most fucking badass human you could be. Like that's actually the purpose of the self-forgiveness. It's not so you can just fucking feel different. It's like, oh, I actually need to fucking change. And I need to get a lot of people to listen to me. And I need to create new structures within the system. And then we can essentially hijack the old system, throw out the shit that's not relevant anymore, and then make sure that it's used for what's best. But that involves every single day catching every single thought. Some people might think, oh, that's really fucking extreme. It's like, well, maybe that's what it takes. You know?
Yeah. And just kind of going back to like looking at the debate stage and how people are just like, oh, that's what's going on. It was really interesting to see that interview, which is also on the playlist, of Robert Kennedy Jr., right? Where he's basically the interviewer is being quite a dick to him, like quite a dick.
But that's his job.
And he's like,
imagine your life as being a fucking interviewer for a TV channel. Like, what the fuck are you doing?
but
It's like, think about this. The system is like, no. We want everyone to feel this is how the world works. It's one of these two guys.
yeah,
That's
Mhm.
it.
Yeah.
And like, RFK Jr., there's things I don't like about him, but he's definitely way more reasonable in a lot of fucking ways than anybody else, on a lot of topics. But that's the thing. They don't want someone to be like, hey, look, here's someone who's actually serious.
yeah, yeah,
Like, here's someone who's actually serious. Like, no, we want the clown show.
right, yeah. Because if you watch that interview, he's like, well, I mean,
No, he
neither of
goes, so you didn't qualify for the debate
yeah,
because you didn't hit these poll numbers and these certain polls. And he was like, well, actually, and he goes, also, you're not on the ballot you're only on the ballot in like 8 states.
right,
And he goes, look, He goes, first of all, I did make the poll numbers. CNN deliberately made the rules and they threw out a certain poll so that I wouldn't be able to meet their criteria on purpose to keep me off of there. Also, I will be on the ballot in a lot of these other states, in like whatever, like massive 80% of them, because we have the signature numbers required. They don't certify you to be on the ballot until August.
Right.
But if you look at how many signatures we have in each state, we are going to qualify on the ballot. So that'd be like saying you don't change the oil in your car because you just bought it and you haven't got to the mileage to change the oil yet.
Right. Yeah.
You've never changed the oil in your car. And it's
Yeah.
like, yeah, but I have the oil and I have it on my calendar to change it at this date, at this many months. Like, so he's like, we have the signatures. We're going to qualify. We have therefore technically qualified. We're just not on the ballot yet. But we're on the ballot in 8 states already where they do the qualification. He goes, neither of those two candidates are on the ballot on any state.
Yeah.
And they're not even officially the nominee for their party yet because they haven't even had their primaries. So like, and then he was just like, right. So, but anyway, so you didn't qualify for the, you know, and the guy just like talks because that's their fucking job.
Yeah. Yeah. It was pretty crazy just seeing this guy. And then he's like asking him like, and then you chose this vice president who's like doesn't have any qualification at
She's
all.
just a lawyer. What's her qualifications? And it's funny because like he's just a lawyer.
Right.
And I'm like, dude, when you study all the fucking presidents in history, they were all lawyers. What was Obama?
Right.
And then he was literally a junior senator and then became president.
Yeah.
So his couple of years as a senator made him qualified. Bill Clinton, he was a lawyer that became the governor. Like, what qualified him to become the governor? Like, honestly, what qualified? It was just so insane, that question. It's like, how many presidents were lawyers? What? Abraham Lincoln. Didn't he fucking teach himself law in a log cabin?
Yeah.
Like, what? Like, it made no sense. And like, imagine watching that and being like, yeah, this RFK Jr. guy, he's making all these weird decisions. He's not even qualified. Like, going along with that. Like, you're so dumb.
Right. That's what they're trying to make you feel. Right. Exactly. But it was a really great opportunity for RFK to bring up like AI. He's like, nobody's talking about AI. Like, that's
right. He goes, no, but she's the smartest person I know and knows about AI. And that's the biggest problem. He's like, So that was his justification as to why he chose her.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Wow. He did a really good job of handling that. And I'm not like advocating obviously for RFK. I'm just saying like, you know, okay, this is what's being promoted to everyone. And, you know, perhaps even like that point of like, okay, this is really early debate. Like we're really early.
Yeah, it doesn't even make sense. It's like it's like we're right before the election kind of style.
Yeah.
Why are they doing this? Like anyways, we could go into all the conspiracy theory. This is on purpose by design, clearly.
Right. So it brings up a lot of questions. And it's really interesting, but also it's like, okay. So
a system that knows how to get you to buy into anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why would it accidentally put him up on that stage and where he's gonna fumble and be like that'd be like thinking that Brad Pitt in a certain movie wore a certain costume just randomly because there was only one lying around. Yeah. Like, no, they chose that. Like the red lamp you saw for 1 second in that one scene was chosen there very specifically.
Yeah.
So like they don't accidentally do these things. It's not how it works.
Yeah, it's also, I mean, I was telling on one of the previous podcasts about like the commercials that they do for shot on iPhone or whatever. Like the way they do those commercials is so fucking specific. Like they have literally like, okay, yes, it's shot on an iPhone, but the rig that they have set up for the iPhone, it's basically as if they're using one of these massive cameras or whatever, because they have it all set up. They put it on tracks. They've got the lighting. They're paying someone specifically like, oh, this is our director of photography. They're here to just do all the lighting. Oh, this is our, engineer for this, for that, whatever. They literally have an entire team. There's like at least 15 people who are directing different things. And then they have their own staff who are putting that all together exactly the way that it's supposed to be. So you're not going to tell me like, oh yeah, that was just an accident that happened, and
it's so specific.
Yeah. Even the way that they responded to these questions, like, we can say that Biden is seen out, it was really interesting because I remember 4 years ago when he was running, how I was saying then, like, he looks old. Like he just, I know he's not all there. I know he's not all there, right? But I just recently saw, I think it was Russell Brand who posted it, of like clips of Biden from 2019 speaking compared to clips of him speaking from this last debate. And it was just like, whoa, he got so much worse. Like he looked fine in comparison. And I was like, I thought he was bad then. Like, holy crap. Like it is just like the slide that he just went down is insane.
And then when they asked Kamala Harris about it, they were like, because they were trying to pressure her to like do like the whatever amendment where they remove the president or whatever, and they're like, do you feel like this is a problem or whatever? And she was like, it's just one bad debate for performance. They're like, oh, he had a goal and he was just off, and it's one bad performance. You're going to judge the whole thing on that, but he's got a proven track record. Like it's like these lines that are said.
It's interesting. Yeah, obviously. Like that's all rehearsed is what I'm trying to say. Is like all
And
that,
then
like,
and then you trust the person who's willing to like cover that up
and literally just lie in your face. Oh, because I didn't show this, but I mean, there's so many instances.
Show some more, because let's build some context for it, because I'm sure some people didn't like watch it.
Yeah.
I was just so over like making fun of it, and we can still make fun of it, but I just needed to get that out of like, it's so fucking pathetic.
Okay, hang on. I gotta find. I'm just looking at these clips as I'm pressing play, like, it's just not true. Let me just find the clip for, let me see.
And then like before the debate, they're like all this propaganda of like, oh, like he's so spry, and I have trouble keeping up with him, and like when we're talking about issues, he's just on the ball, and I'm like, and then
Who
all this
would say that?
Like just media propagandists who are like, like leaking stuff from like White House aides and stuff. Yeah, go ahead.
This is literally from 11 days ago. Okay.
This is 11 days, so this is before the debates. Okay, and they were like, there was videos going around of Biden being like a demented, senile retard.
Right, and then
before the debate.
Before cheap fakes. I was trying to make out what she said. I still don't know that's exactly what she said. But according to the Daily Beast, she said the word cheap fake. Well, here you go.
Ironically, several recent cheap fakes actually attack the president for thanking troops. For thanking troops. That is what they're attacking the president for. Both in Normandy, this happened, and again in Italy. And I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. And instead of talking about the president's performance in office, and what I mean by that is his legislative wins, what he's been able to do for the American people across the country, we're seeing these deep fakes, these manipulated videos. And it is, again, done in bad faith.
Okay.
Damn.
Bad faith. So now, can you find that video?
Yeah.
Of Joe Biden like wandering off at the Normandy thing or whatever.
Deception on deception. That's like the limited hangout for anyone who remembers.
Just put Normandy.
There's also even saying cheap fake.
I just want to show one of them.
Wow.
No,
because the Normandy was no, that was different. That was something different. This
just which one was it?
This
that one. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Okay.
This is during the G7.
They're all trying to like walk over for him.
Yeah, like, buddy, he's just
Is this in like 0.5 speed?
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's things like that where you're like, he's just like wandering off, like being weird. That's what she was referring to. It's these videos that have gone viral of him like saying weird stuff, doing weird things like that, right? Can you go full screen or can you go no share right for a second?
Okay, yeah, sorry.
And so what the press secretary was trying to do is like all these things that are going viral, she called them cheap fakes, deep fakes, whatever. Like they're just saying it's a deep fake. Like there's just a video of him like from CNN, like that people are making fun of. So they're like misrepresenting it. And then trying to cover up that he's not, that actually is totally fine. What are you talking about? Now we see the evidence from the actual debate of what's going on. This is like the reality of it. And then also she said they're attacking him for thanking the troops. So yes, Republicans who love the military are attacking Biden for thanking the troops.
Can you believe that?
That'd be like if I went to your wedding and during the ceremony where you're like putting the ring on her finger, I stood up and just in front of everybody went and started pissing into a potted plant. And then later you guys are talking shit about me. And I'm like, wow, you're attacking me for supporting Drake and Christine's wedding? Really? For being there for him as a friend? You're attacking me for being there for him? It's like, no, that happened to be what you were there for.
Right.
But you were pissing in a potted plant in front of everybody. That was retarded. That was weird. Like, but you see how the lies, how they're like, see, in politics, they always see the other side's lying. Right. But they never go into the detail of how they're lying. Like, for example, one of the things I dislike about Trump is that he doesn't explain things effectively. But of course, he doesn't need to because he's just trying to speak to the masses. I get it. So I'm not saying he's not very good at politics. But it would be nice if he could, but like when they attacked him for the Charlottesville hoax thing.
Let me show that. Let me show that real quick.
Okay.
Let me show that because that's here, right?
Do you hear any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided in Iraq, because of Iraq, I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young woman got killed. They spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, "What do you think of those people? The people the ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones," he said, "I think they're fine people on both sides." What American president would ever say Nazis coming out of fields carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas were fine people? And this is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. The good things Hitler's done, that's what he said. This guy has no sense of American democracy.
Both of you know that story has been totally wiped out because when you see the sentence, it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran because of Charlottesville. He didn't run because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last chance. He's not.
But anyway, like clear lie. Like it was a lie when he first ran with that as his opening line of like, this is why I'm running. Right. And it's still a lie today.
Not even to defend anything Trump is saying. What he said was, there were people coming out here who were really I'm just paraphrasing, who were here because they didn't want certain statues to be torn down because they were historical statues. And there were people protesting those people. There were also the neo-Nazis, and they should be condemned totally. But there was very fine people on both sides.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
But then because the media
he wanted the statue to stay, and the people protesting and wanted the statue.
Like that's you're right. You can like the statues or not like the statues. You can protest each other, whatever you want to do. Yeah, there was some neo-Nazis there. They should be condemned totally. That's what he was saying.
Yeah.
So he was saying not in an extremely clear way, but clear enough that if you're looking at it in good faith, you would know, okay, obviously he's not in any way supporting the Nazis, right? The neo-Nazis, whatever. But then they take that all out of context on purpose, and they just go like, Trump supports Nazis. They run with that. They impulse with everybody with it, right? They probably only showed that to Biden. Do you think Biden went and did the research? Maybe he actually, maybe he's just totally lying. But like, honestly, the thing is, he comes across as really actually like thinking Trump is bad. Maybe he's a really good actor. Maybe he's just like a really old dude, and they just like he can't even find the bathroom by himself. Don't you think they're probably like showing the old Grandpa Joe, like, look what he said about these Nazis. Look what CNN is saying. Like, look what he did. And he's probably like, oh, dude, I can't like allow that.
Yeah.
I'm just giving him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, he's sitting there going like, Trump is a bad dude.
But maybe he's like, dude, like, what the fuck? We can't let this, whatever, right?
I said I wasn't gonna run. Dude, but they later
He
on,
was saying he ran because he couldn't allow Trump to, who was openly supporting Nazis,
right?
right? And so, like Trump said, that's been thoroughly debunked. But why couldn't he just like pull out his phone and like maybe they weren't allowed to have them, but like couldn't you just in that moment be like, hold on, let's just stop it, everybody.
Right. That's what doesn't make sense to me. It's like I would.
I'm talking to CNN. You guys are CNN. Can you right now, for the sake of this debate, I will yield all the rest of my time and I will concede the entire debate. Can you have one of your producers briefly pull up the entire clip of what I said? And I will walk away and Biden can speak for the rest of the debate. Why can't you just do something like that and be like, let's make this fucking clear once and for all. This man's fucking lying. He's lying. You're all lying. You're manipulating everybody. This is bullshit. I'm not participating.
Yeah.
That's what did not make sense to me. That's why I think, I don't know, some level, I don't know what the fuck Trump actually
Mitch
represents.
gives it a thumbs down. Look at that.
But at the same time, he didn't need to do that because he could just stand there and say whatever he said and like say enough that his supporters felt like, yeah, he stood up for himself, but then it doesn't matter because I'm just trying to let Biden basically speak.
Right.
Because that's good enough.
I wonder
that's
what's
good enough to show.
I wonder what is Trump's plan, because last time he didn't win, you know, and I think judging by the rallies, I think he had a lot more support. But
it's going to be very interesting. I don't,
Arizona, you know,
I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if they're going to replace Biden. That's what people are saying. It's just that to me seems like, you know, I would have said it's so far in the realm of cognitive dissonance that like people couldn't accept it. But I feel like at this point, that's why they have to build this point where it's like,
or they could make something up of where he gets like really sick or something, you know, where it's like, oh, Biden's like,
and see, now it makes sense that he was, you know, but it's like, I would think the cognitive dissonance would be too great, but they did that with the last election. Like it was clearly the whole Black Lives Matter Summer of Love was all about mail-in voting so that they could do all this fuckery in the background. And they knew it would happen at every level. It's like,
Summer of Love.
it's like if you were Louis Vuitton and you wanted to cash in on a bunch of insurance because people stole a bunch of shit from the stores.
Yeah.
And you knew if you just like, I don't know, I'm trying to make something up. Like you knew that if you told the managers they could have extra time on their lunch breaks, that you knew somehow they'd take advantage of that and they would be lax in the way they ran the store. And that would invite people to come in and steal shit or something. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, it's like you didn't give the order, like, let these people come and steal shit. You did something that you knew people are going to game this. Yeah. You know what I mean? If we just make it mail-in voting, everybody will know what to do because they want to win, because they're all like, you know. So and it's like, you would have thought people would have been like, hold on. I remember in the middle of the night, the whole counting of the votes shut down. And like, well, we'll be back in the morning because there was some fire in Georgia, and so they had to like stop counting, and you know, like, and yeah, we're gonna stop and come back. And then like you wake up in the morning, okay, we're counting again. Oh, look what all these. Oh, wow, like it totally went back into Biden's favor. Like, whoa. What? Like I was watching it. Here's Biden, or here's Trump. Here's Biden. We stop, come back in the morning. Wow, weird.
Yeah. That shit don't add up.
It's just
really.
and it wasn't, and there's no transparency, it's no clarity on it. It's like, okay, something. So I don't know, like maybe they'll just blatantly be like, yep, Biden's out, we're choosing Gavin Newsom or somebody else or whatever, and then people will just be like, oh, okay, yeah, sure, okay.
That's when weird. Is the primary? Do you guys know?
No, I don't know. I can look it up.
I'm looking it up right now.
Okay, cool.
I mean, the primary is kind of irrelevant, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh no, but it's not irrelevant. Yeah, okay, because of that point. Yeah. Sorry, I was thinking the Republican primary is irrelevant.
Well, we already know who's the Republican nominee.
But the Democrat one.
Yeah, there's up for grabs. We have then okay. So I noticed that you put the Hitler speech on the playlist.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure if you would or not, but I just found it really
Why not?
interesting. Yeah, no.
It's there
Yeah,
on the internet.
it is there on the internet. But no, it's if you are listening to this, go to that playlist, go to our YouTube, go to that playlist, check out all the videos that we're talking about. But also, there is a video on there that is a speech by Adolf Hitler, and it's been reconstructed using AI to be spoken in English, right?
With like
And
his same kind of
his same-
tonality and
yeah,
ish, you know,
intonations.
probably doesn't get it quite across, but you know, close
Yeah.
enough, I guess.
Yeah. And you listen
But like,
to
let me
that.
ask you a question. Like, did any of you, when you were growing up at school, whatever, ever study any speech that Hitler ever wrote, or even know what he talked about? Because all these, he was this great orator, and he was able to control the masses. And I'm like, yeah, you should tell us what he fucking said, because that's crazy that people would just believe all this nonsense.
Right. And so like, no, I never read any speech that he wrote or spoke or gave, or any of his like Mein Kampf or any of that stuff, really. And so it was just sort of like it's the same thing with like different, but same thing with you hear about Marx and like you don't read his manifesto or
Right.
anything at all. It's just like that's bad. And in fact, I kind of remember this like vague point of seeing a movie where if you check out certain books, actually, I think it was that movie that was like The Seven Deadly Sins. Was that a movie?
Seven?
Seven, I think, with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Yeah. I haven't seen it actually, but I know about it. I know what it's about.
So I think in that movie, there's like a scene where they're talking about like if you go to the library and you check out certain books, then you're put on a list. And they were referring to books of like Mein Kampf or
Okay.
Karl Marx's Communist Manifesto, or whatever. Like it's interesting because
Question is, if I get on that list, will I get marketing for more books like that?
yes.
There's multiple lists.
Because now if you go on Amazon and buy the books, they're going to be like, if you like Mein Kampf, you would love, I don't know.
Right. Yeah. But anyway, so those but the implication there is like you're a bad person if you read those things, you know. So it's so interesting because like we're taught about, yeah, these are terrible people and they wrote these books and they gave these speeches and they were very convincing and very hypnotic, but you're not told like what's the content of that actual speech ever, right? And so it's cool because, you know, in our conversation that we were having, Cam, you were like, oh, AI.
Did we in the US put Japanese people in quote internment camps?
We did. Yeah.
How is that okay?
Well, I mean,
For the greater good, Cameron.
And did we not apparently anyways drop atomic weapons and incinerate hundreds of thousands of people? If you believe the whole story, that's what happened. I'm not questioning did it happen. Were they actual atomic bombs? Were they firebombing it? I don't know. Maybe it was just one bomb that really blew everybody up. Did we do that?
Yeah.
I mean, we're claiming we did. So even if we didn't, like we're saying we did.
We're taking responsibility.
And we're okay with that. Like, are we okay with sacrificing hundreds of thousands of people for the quote greater good?
The government of the U.S. would say yes.
We're okay as Americans with doing that. I mean, like we were told the story and we're not like in school going like, what? Fuck that.
Yeah.
No, we're like, okay, yes. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Okay. You said it was for the greater good. Yeah. I mean, so it was like, no, because like when I read it, I'm like, that's fucked up. When I read the Bible and it says God did this, and I'm like, that's fucked up. Like, I'm not like, well, it's God. So, you know, I mean, it's good. So, you know, it's cool. Like, you know, so that, yeah, okay, he gave us free will. So that's why children, you know, have flies growing out of their eyeballs because we disobeyed God. Like, I didn't disobey God. What are you fucking talking about? I wasn't there. So children have to have flies growing out of their eyeballs because somebody else disobeyed God a long time ago.
Dude, think of like in Catholicism, right? It's like when your baby is born, you have to get it baptized like right away. Because it's born into like that's the whole point is like it's born into sin.
As if it dies before that, it's going to hell.
Yeah, it's not going to heaven. Like, wait, what? Why? Why
So
would
God
do
is
that?
like, guys, you didn't wash them.
You didn't
Right.
you didn't wash them.
You didn't dip them in the water that one time and say those words. So, like, that's how God makes the distinction.
And then you've seen the videos of like the priest
But the baby
dunking
has
him-
free will, right?
dunking him in the water, like literally.
Is that free will?
No? It
When the
can't
baby
be.
dies, shouldn't it be based on its free will whether it goes to heaven or not? It's just like,
Yeah.
it's like
Insane.
everybody believing all this bullshit is the same as watching that Biden speech and then being like, well, I mean, it's just, yeah, I think he had a cold and it was just one bad performance. We shouldn't get rid of him just because of that. Like, I mean, what are you talking about? Just one bad performance. Like, and they're like, but look at his performance as president and all the legislation he's passed. I'm like, shouldn't you realize he's not the one doing any of that shit in the government? They're like, here you go, sign it. He's like, okay. Like, do you think he's out there doing all that? Or is he just showing up where they tell him to show up and giving his point? And then it's like he's writing the 5,000 page bills and reading them.
No, obviously.
If he still believes the Charlottesville thing, do you think they're like, okay, Joe, read this bill? Or is they're like, oh, it takes care of people for their Medicare, so we don't shut down Medicare. But it's like 5,000 pages of like, who fucking knows what all kind of shit's being funded in there. And he's like, oh, well, we got to protect the old people with their Medicare. Like, if he believes the Charlottesville thing and he can't process even, again, I don't give a shit about Trump. Like, in terms of defending him on the point, like, even Trump being like, oh, the neo-Nazis are bad. I'm not saying I agree, because I don't give a shit what those people were actually saying. Like they're not standing 100% what's best for all. So I'm not defending them in terms of what they were saying. But to even say they were neo-Nazis is misrepresenting it.
Yeah.
But Trump can't go, well, hold on. What were those people they're actually marching about?
Oh, because then it would be like equivocating.
They were neo-Nazis. They had swastikas. I didn't see any swastikas. I saw tiki torches. Yeah, that was weird. And they were all dressed in preppy clothing. And what were they actually saying? Like, I'm not saying I agree or don't agree, but like, just to call them neo-Nazis, like, okay, what, meaning what? How were they neo-Nazis? Weren't they there
Swastikas,
about
Cameron.
the,
Apparently.
but
I've never seen
even-
footage of it.
But even if somebody had a swastika, you can go to any protest anywhere in the history of basically anything, and you're going to see somebody with a swastika because they're trying to fucking agitate and cause a problem and get that shot to show that there was a neo-Nazi there.
Yeah.
There was probably Nazi flags at a Black Lives Matter, but the media wants you to believe in Black Lives Matter, so they won't associate the Nazis with that. They'll associate people against it.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
But anyways, it's really relevant. It's just like, if Biden can't process that it's being misrepresented what Trump said, then how is he processing anything of the stuff he's doing as the president? So it's just total bullshit. He's not doing any of that stuff. So then this cognitive dissonance of like, well, they're attacking him because they don't want to look at his actual track record. They just want to pick out these little silly gaffes that he has, but they're not looking at actually what he's accomplishing. That's what we should go based on. It's like, what is he accomplishing?
Right.
Oh, look at the White House Instagram. They'll tell you. It's funny. They're like, he's created the most jobs ever.
Has life gotten better? We're in more wars.
Yeah.
No.
People are paying more money for shit. There are people losing jobs, working more jobs that are part-time so they can basically make it. Like, you should not be proud of having 3 jobs. That's not how our reality should work. You know, and like, we're talking about all the canning and all that kind of stuff. We're talking about the food and all that. It's like, our system is not designed to be best for everybody. And when we all feel like it's not our place to do anything about it, it's because we were programmed to feel that way. And you were programmed to go along with Joe Biden just because he's the president, even though the evidence before your eyes is that this person is not able, like, they're clearly not even capable of calling the shots. How, like, if you put that person next to Putin, like, Biden likes to go like, I'd show him a real ass whooping or something, you know what I mean? And it's like, no, you wouldn't. You just happen to have this giant economy behind you. And you have like all this bureaucracy around you. But in that moment, do you think he's calling any fucking shots?
No.
Like, give me a break. And
Biden
then
would be
even the
like,
presidents who stand up and say they want to go in a different direction, you have this intelligence agencies that are like there to keep him from doing that.
Yeah.
So it's really just the system that's doing everything. And we're just all participating in it, going along with it, not questioning it, not standing up at any level within ourselves, you know, and having all of our biases as the excuse. It's just not acceptable.
Yeah. It's interesting because when you think of it like as the intelligence agencies directing the president of like, no, you can't go here, you can't do that. It's like if you think about it from the context of for instance, the Rothschilds trying to get their bank into the US, right? And the US like saying, no, we don't want your bank. Like we're good. We did that once. We're gonna cancel or not renew for the next charter. Thank you. They're like, oh, okay. Well, we'll just pay off all these senators and congressmen and people within the government so that they'll want to go to war, and we'll pay off people over here in the UK so they want to go to war as well. And then you'll need money, and then we'll be there. And it's like,
okay, here's my question real quick. Okay, it's the day after the election.
Mhm.
Let's just say there was an election where it was totally fraudulent.
okay.
Okay. And it was really, the evidence was abundantly clear to everybody that it was fraudulent. Like,
I'm imagining this.
I'm not saying this like to prove that it was. I'm just saying like imagine an actual new scenario where it was totally obviously fraudulent.
I got you.
Okay, when the new president comes in and they're the president-elect, how, like, imagine all the people like Secret Service, people who like wash the limousine, like people who drive it, people who prepare the food, people who like open the door when the president walks in. All those people have to go along with this person is now the president.
Mm-hmm.
Who gives them the order that no, this is the legitimate one? Like, what if a president was fraudulently elected, like it was obviously fraud, and the other guy was like, no, I'm not backing down. And this guy literally went and got some people to put him in a literal prison and hold him there. And then he shows up at the White House and he's like, I'm the president. Like, how does all the people in the apparatus decide, like, no, that's not, like, I watched you put the actual guy who clearly was elected in prison and you're just showing up. What if the media was like, no, that was actually all legitimate. There's like laws that say you can do it. Like, how does that person go like, okay, well, are we following the law in this case, or would we be following the law in that case? Like, how do they make that? Like, how do all the people who run the staff, like, they show up for work the next day, like, oh, I'm on the presidential staff. Like, so I serve this guy. He's the actual legit. Like, where's the one place everyone goes to like check, like, okay, yep, he is officially the one. It's like, I don't think that actually exists. It's like everyone's just going along with like, yeah, we're all accepting it's this guy because it's so, because like you had the whole media saying Trump was colluding with Russia back when he won.
Right.
And even Hillary Clinton, all these people saying it was like Russia was involved. And it's like, so why are we allowing him to be the president? Like, what are you doing, everybody? Like, it's clearly like, like, so, but it's like there's this vague system that just keeps operating. Well, and then hold on. And then just this last point is, remember we talked about the intelligence agencies and they're like operating? When the president's gone, those people are still there.
Yeah.
So who's directing them?
Yeah.
Like, to continue their mission? Does it go just based on laws, or like, they get switched out? It's a new director, a new president, like everything continues functioning. And you're like, how is this all just continuing even though you're swapping people out? It doesn't make any sense.
You know what it's like? It's like, when you have a substitute teacher come in, it's like the class is still like, or you have a permanent sub. You ever hear of those?
Yeah. So not one where they just like ignore the sub or something.
Right. But like, it's like, this is not supposed to be my real teacher. and you're like kind of like at a certain point you're like you're gonna leave. Somebody else is gonna come into the class. I don't need you. Like that's basically what the CIA or the intelligence agencies are. Is like, listen, you're just a sub. Yeah, you run the class, but we know
But
you're gonna
the thing that
leave.
drives the person, for the people who care about, let's say, school, and you have a sub teacher, you're like, yeah, but I still have the same grade. So I still gotta fall in line so I can get my good grade so I can do
Sort
that.
of. It's really just a point of like,
Not everyone thinks that, but it's like
is the
that.
teacher going to send me to detention or not, or give me the can like kick
See,
me out
but
of
in your
class?
analogy, Drake, it's like Mitch is talking about the kids. You're talking about more like the administration or something.
I'm just talking more about like no, I am talking about the kids.
The
Like,
CIA would not be the kids in this case. The CIA would be the voters. I mean, sorry, the kids would be the voters.
I guess so. I'm just thinking of it like as
Or
in
like the staff, like the staff at the
because
White House
the
who like,
president is supposed to be the
Yeah.
the commander in chief, and all these people are supposed to be working underneath him, right? But they're not actually. It's not. That's not how it functions. Actually, they're like, yeah, you're here for a minute. We don't give a fuck. You know, like we're still.
So
doing
how
our
does it
thing.
all work then? Because even the CIA, they're temporary in a certain level, anyways. They
well,
don't live
so
forever.
much of
Each
it is
person.
like it's that book Persuasion by Robert Cialdini. It explains it really well. It's like so much of it is decided. This is consequence from years before, right? And media
It's like
stories and the whole
you're
thing.
you're going
Yeah.
into a structure that you saw everyone else doing it, so you're just like, I'm gonna do it, and it's like it's like a story, like an oral story that gets passed down from generation to generation. It lives beyond anybody else just because it keeps getting shared and shared and accepted and shared. And
Right.
so like even everybody in the whole system, what everyone has to understand is you go listen to Resident Seed, you go listen to Advantages of Pre-Programmed Design, like all the Bernard stuff, and you realize like, oh, it's because we've been programmed with symbols with certain meanings, and that's why we just go along with everything and we accept it, and we accept this person in that position even though they're swapped out, where it's the symbol that we're responding to. That's why the education system has to fundamentally change, like what kids are taught, because they just don't it doesn't matter what you expose or don't expose. It won't change anything. People will still go along with it. Like all of these like 80 million people who like supported Trump, who's voted for him the last time, however many of them thought that the whole thing was stolen, still just went on with their lives and accepted and like complained about Biden, but just keep accepting everything. It's like, doesn't that tell you? And like even right now, literally right now, everyone is aware that Biden, like we saw the clips, that's the person who's the president, who's running the country, who's making all the decisions. They're making all the decisions. They're directing every single point. They're in charge of everything. Explain that. How is that happening? And we're just going along like, yep, that's just, just America. And like, and how is it that Russia's not like, dude, like, let's attack right now. Let's take them over right now.
Yeah.
Because they know if they did, the whole system of America would be like, nah, motherfucker. Like,
Right.
I'm not saying that from a point of pride. I'm saying like, because the president isn't the one who fucking you think like the generals are going to be like, what's your command, Commander Biden? Like, they're just going to be like, all right, we are attacked. Let's go. Let's respond. Like, it wouldn't require him. They would put him in the briefing room. They tell him what's happening. They pre-frame it the way they want him the decision to make, and he would have to physically sign it.
Yeah.
Like,
it's just
if the
it's
wars
a
depended
package.
upon, if the wars actually depended on the commander in chief, explain to me all the years of study that any commander in chief ever did studying war.
No.
How would they even know whether a battle was a good idea, like a certain strategy was a good idea?
Yeah, they're advisors.
That'd be like if you were asking Magnus Carlsen's cousin, if he was getting like what move he should make in a chess game. Like, how would they know?
Yeah. It's interesting because like when they're disparaging Trump, for instance, about him not listening to the CIA or to his intelligence agents, they're like, and he just wouldn't listen. Like he just questioned, like,
in other words, we're giving you the information and the conclusion. You're not
Right.
agreeing with our conclusion, so you're not listening. It's like,
right.
So I also have to agree with your conclusion. What's the point of the president? And you just
Right.
see it's on purpose in the way everyone is currently accepting it. It's just so we think there's someone directing it who's a person, and we don't realize it's a system.
Yeah.
Because if you realize it's a system, then you'd be like, maybe we should change the system. If you think it's a person, you think maybe we should change the person.
Right. Right. Yeah.
So here's a question that will bring it all together. When we talk about evolution, right? It's like, what is evolution then? And I mean evolution in the context of us as individuals evolving, and then also the system evolving. Because there's a best way for it to evolve, and then there's not best ways for it to evolve. So from your guys' perspective, what do you see? Like, what is the best definition of evolution here
So
in the context of everything?
I think that's a great question because I think we need an intelligent design to this evolution. You know, we
Real
can't just,
intelligent.
we can't just
real
leave it
design.
up to just a natural selection that just happens randomly and mutates on its own.
Because it will just keep evolving into the same fucking thing, which we
But
have
that's
here,
not
but it keeps
even
getting
what's
worse.
happening.
Yeah.
That's a bullshit story that we're told, so we don't realize how it's actually happening.
Mhm.
And I just explained how it happens. We're programmed with symbols.
Mhm.
That's why the thing is going the way it is. Nothing is actually evolving. We didn't come from a process of evolution primarily. There can be examples of evolution in terms of things being selected by nature, by the random forces that occur, but there is no random forces. There aren't any. Like, it'd be like trying to argue that, look at those images that Midjourney produces. Those are just occurring randomly. Because the computer's randomly just throwing up stuff. It's not actually. It's random in a way, but based on very specific parameters that have been trained to produce things within a certain range of expression. And then also, all the fucking history of technology is behind that computer existing.
Yeah.
So none of it is random at all. It's all according to a design. Our reality is operating according to a design. But the original designer is not in control of it. We are collectively in control of it. But we have a story that the designer is still out there somewhere and taking responsibility and control over it somehow. And that if we just align ourselves in a sense of camaraderie with that original creator, somehow we will then allow that creator to continue creating in the best way possible, because we'll be allowing it instead of fighting it.
Yeah.
That's still just like acceptance of the authority program. And I'm telling you, that's not how it's going to work. It's like, as a tutor, the most challenging thing was getting the students to just study the shit themselves. It's like, well, just tell me what it means. And it's like, yeah, but then you're not going to be able to really understand it. And so you're relying on me to help you understand it. But I'm not going to be there to answer the specific question. So if the teacher changes it up, you're fucked. Like, you don't know. Do you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So this can't be like, oh, we just go along with God. We let God in and let him work through us. No, we have to look at what are all the things that if there was a God, the principles that that creator would create with, and we create with those actively, directly. So put the conditions in place. Like, instead of talking about evolution, let's talk about what does every form need at its basic level to operate at its full capacity. That's the first step of evolution that we need to do. Evolve the way we think about reality so that we are like, hey, how do we support every form so that it is its best expression and it exhibits its best characteristics and is given exactly what it needs to express itself in the best way. Like, I'm learning about growing pepper plants, that, hey, if you want them to produce more effectively, better nutritious stuff, you got to focus on the actual fertilizer you're using and how much water. And there's specifics that I'm learning that I didn't know. You can't just put it in the ground and let the rain happen. You can, but it's not necessarily the best, because the system wasn't designed in the first place to just provide all of that in the best way. It's better than you can do if you just totally artificially do it without any knowledge, because there's already a lot in nature that works together obviously effectively without our interference. But we can adjust a lot of things that we were interfering with and then even improve that. So it's like we're trying to evolve through technology. We're trying to just make technology better and better and better, thinking that that will save us, but it won't, because that technology is still being created by, utilized by self-interested creatures that don't actually care about anyone else, even themselves. And they're just doing it based on how can I create the most energy for a machine that's just designed to create energy. It's like, imagine somebody created this machine to generate energy, and then that person died. And they were using that energy for some purpose. But now that they're dead, we didn't really understand why it was done. And we're like, we just got to keep this machine running. And you're like, where's all that energy going? You're like, I don't know, but we just got to keep it going. It's like, why don't we rethink why we're what this machine is designed for, which is our system, the world we live in, and maybe instead of just letting it just randomly create this energy for no reason anymore, let's question why it was designed the way it was, and then readjust it to, hey, maybe we should have a machine that actually creates, let's say, energy that's best for everybody, that is distributed in the most effective way, and it wasn't just being channeled to this one dude's like specific purposes. Like the money system. Why aren't we directing the money system so that it's best for everybody? Instead, it's only for a few.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's it. Like, we don't need to think about evolution per se. Evolution is a story we tell ourselves so that we can pretend that we are already the best we could possibly be. And we just have to keep going along with things being just randomly happening. And eventually we'll get better and better. And probably I'll never see the result of that, but billions of years from now, but then ultimately a trillion years from now, it'll all end anyways, because it was all based on entropy, which defeats the whole idea of evolution in the first place. So it's all fucking retarded. There is no, you see what I mean? It's just like, let's just do the actual basic shit first. We have children starving in this world. So why are we fucking arguing about, like, we didn't play this clip, and I know we have to go soon, but there was a certain point where they were going back and forth, Trump and Biden, about who had a better golf score.
Yeah.
And like arguing which had a higher handicap and all that. And I'm like, we should be realizing the mental handicap that everybody fucking has in our reality of like not at all understanding reality at all, and like your place in it, and being so deluded and diluted.
I thought that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty funny when they were talking about the golf swing, because Trump was like, they were talking about their age, right? Then Trump was like, I passed all the tests with flying colors. I'm the smartest president ever. This guy could not pass.
But it's like you could, someone could criticize him for that, but it's like, but they're asking in a way where he has to prove that, like, no, I'm fine.
Right. Yeah.
And like the guy who's clearly fucking not fine standing right next to him, it's like, are we really having, like, just look at the two speak? Can't you see this? And they're like trying to argue about his weight. And I'm like, what are you talking about? The whole system that also said Lizzo is beautiful and a perfect weight, and there's nothing wrong with obesity, and that's just white supremacy. And then, but now you're going to also criticize this guy for being overweight. And like, clearly he can like walk and talk and say normal things, like, you know, in a coherent way. Well, no, he was totally coherent. Like, you have to be fucking out of your mind to think. Do you know what I'm saying? It's like, Trump isn't necessarily the most coherent in that particular format you chose, but that's like if you put a Mike Tyson type boxer in an MMA match, or if you put an MMA fighter rather into a Mike Tyson boxing match, they're gonna seem limited.
Yeah.
They're like, wow, he's only trying to punch. It's like, that's what he's fucking really good at. And now you're trying to box him into this point where it's like he only has a certain time limit. He can't come back with his quips. He can't, you know what I mean? Like, okay, so now it seems like he's not really making total sense like you would normally think. It's all a joke.
At the end of that, at the end of the debate, there was a clip of, they're watching Trump walk off the stage. And he walks over to the side and goes backstage or whatever. And then they're watching Biden. They pan out and they see Biden, and he's like coming down the front steps of the stage to go shake the reporter's hands or whatever. And as he's doing that, his wife is standing there, like helping him down the steps. There's a cameraman there who's like pointing out, like, hey, look out for this and that. And he looks like a really old man, just trying to, go down a couple of steps. It's very sad looking. It's very sad
Yeah.
looking. And you
Like
know,
that should wake people up. I mean, I know it won't, but that should be a clue that like, hey, it's no one running the shop. Like, guys,
Yeah.
we can actually stand up and change things in this world. Like I think Konstantin Kisin put it the best. I'm pretty sure it was him. He was like, look, President Biden can run the greatest country, the biggest economy, the biggest military in the entire world with dementia. So what excuse do you have for not pursuing your dreams?
there you go.
Let's go. Yeah.
There you go.
So
That's it.
evolve, evolve yourself though, and how you interact with reality, because it's on us to step up. So let's do it.
Let's go. All right, y'all. See you
Cool.
next week.
See everybody on the parenting call right after this.
Let's go. Bye.